It's 5:30. It's Monday, June 12th, time for our stormwater meeting. We have a full agenda tonight, and we have some guests and we have presentations, so we're gonna get in, and we have a quorum. And so we're gonna get right into this. Those are my welcoming remarks. There are no announcements that I know of. What I'd like to do is start off, we're going to do this a little differently today. We had a last-minute addition to our agenda, so we have to vote on a revised agenda. I think everybody has it in front of them. But before we get to that, what I'd like to do is take a motion to approve, it's the second and third items on our agenda, to approve all bills and payrolls as presented, and a motion to approve the April 10th, 2023 minutes. So would someone like to make a motion to approve those two items?
So moved.
Thank you, John. Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition, same sign, not hearing any, they pass. So, the next thing we need to do is to approve the agenda that is in front of everyone, but it's a revised agenda. If you go to the second page, you'll see the Bream Alley Memorandum of Understanding with Gettysburg Municipal Authority. When we get to that, I will read that, but that's the addition to the agenda for today. That it came in the last minute. It was not put up on the website a couple days or 3 days ago when we okayed the first agenda. So that's the addition. Would someone like to make a motion to accept this approved agenda?
And I would just
Yes,
note that's being added because this had been discussed previously, and I think due to just an oversight and us not having the May meeting, that action item lagged a
Right.
bit behind, and it doesn't necessarily make sense, given the sensitivity of that project, to wait until the next meeting to do that. So that's why we're proposing to amend the agenda, include that item here.
And move this project along as fast as we can. Okay, thank you. Any other discussion on that? Not hearing any. Would someone like to make a motion?
Mr. Boyer, we meet all the new sunshine requirements then with this?
You do.
Okay.
As
that's all I
long as
wanna
we have
hear.
an updated agenda posted after the meeting.
Good.
So
All right.
that'll be on the website.
So moved.
Okay, second?
Second.
Thank you, John. All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none. Our revised agenda is passed as stated. Okay, we have now time for public comment, and these comments should be restricted to items on the agenda. We have some public here. Sandy and Frederica, would you like to make any comments about anything that is on this agenda? And if you would, please go up to the podium, because that's usually what we do. Maybe sit there because you're closer to our secretary.
I can hear you.
Yeah.
Well, we're here mainly to listen.
The
Okay.
audio, they're not gonna get
And-
They're not gonna be able to hear the audio.
Oh, I see. I
the
see.
video camera.
I got it. The video camera doesn't have the audio. I'm sorry.
Our
Sorry.
audience at home will not hear you.
Yeah, thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Is that okay? Okay, we're here mainly to listen, and we might have some questions when we get to the stormwater management issue at the McKee residence,
Right.
or construction on McMillan.
Right. Well, I believe probably this is the time for you to maybe ask those questions or bring those issues up. Are you ready to do that? Because we will be going through that fairly quickly, looking at our engineer for information on that. So if you,
Okay.
Could you state your name for the record?
Oh, Sandra, Sandra, Mackie, Mackie. And I live on Ridge Avenue in Gettysburg.
Thank you, Sandra.
Sure, you're welcome. Well, Mike, I'm not sure that we really are prepared for questions at this moment, because we did meet with Chad Clayball.
Mhm.
And that's Robbie without the sunglasses? Okay. And John Lawver and some of the construction people, the architect and the construction and the excavator.
Mhm.
So I believe that the plan was altered since we met with them last Monday, on
Okay.
Wednesday the 7th. According to the agenda, this is the final approved plan.
That's what
So
we're
I don't
voting
really know what the final approved plan is at this point. I'm counting on Clayball and Robbie, I don't know your last name, I'm sorry.
Harbaugh.
Harbaugh. That they were there, they know our concerns. We're concerned about a swale that might be obstructed, and that all the stormwater that comes down off the hill and back of the house from the national park could be obstructed if the swale is obstructed. And we are very concerned that we would have flooding problems, because the property, which is now two properties, was once one property. And the fellow that built the house had both current properties graded, and all to drain down to a drain that's been added on the property side of the sidewalk. And so we're concerned mostly about any obstruction to the swale,
Okay,
because if that gets obstructed, then we have floods at our house.
all right.
Because especially since the national park took the trees down, we're really concerned about all the flood water that comes down off that hill. There's no drainage back there, and there's no kind of retention pond or anything
Right.
at the bottom of the hill where the park meets our property, and so it just all comes down.
Right.
So if it gets obstructed, then we get flooded.
Okay.
So that's our main concern.
And when we get to that, I think Chad will speak to that. When we get to that item, Chad will speak to that, okay?
Yes, that's what I
For sure.
understand.
Okay,
Okay,
all right. Okay, thank you.
certainly.
Frederick, go ahead.
Pastor Mackey kept saying "we." I'm the other part of the "we." We're two retired pastors, and we live in this property next door to. My name is Frederica Meinson. I'm sorry. I'll spell it for you in a bit. And we live next to the McKee property. And we were concerned because when the McKees moved in there, they just started doing some work in this swale or in the easement, and they didn't seem to have any jurisdiction over what that was, and so we were quite concerned, and I think Pastor Mackey covered it pretty well.
Okay.
So we're just wanting to know what's going on. We don't want to be flooded out.
Right.
We have lived there for some time, and so we have experienced some of the flooding, severe flooding in this area. And now that that property, what is now the McKee property, has been, the trees have been wiped out, and we have, let me use the proper term here, impervious surface. Are you impressed, Chad?
One of our favorite terms.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I'm just learning. So with that impervious surface, which has really caused a lot of concern. So we appreciate Chad Clayball being there and all the other people that were there.
Well, you'll be hearing from him again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We will move on to our special presentation. Jennifer, from Mayor Dussel. We have an audit to go over.
Yes.
Yes.
Exciting stuff.
Yep. Our December 31, 2022 audit.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jennifer Kriver-Kibbe with Mar Dissel, and going to give some highlights of the final 2022 audit for the authority. So the biggest change for the audited financial statements is they're now comparative. So previous years it would just show single year. So now in the 2022 audit, you'll see both columns for 2022 and 2021 at the request of management and the board. The financial statements themselves, with the opinion we gave, that's the only portion of the financial report that is ours, our independent auditor's report. And the opinion we gave is what's called an unmodified opinion. It is the best opinion that the authority can receive. And we stated that the financial statements were prepared in accordance with cash basis of accounting, and they're materially correct in accordance with cash basis of accounting. Some significant highlights comparing prior year to current year is on the statement of receipts, disbursements, and changes in fund position. Slight increase in engineering costs as well as admin costs, engineering costs, a lot more projects going on in 2022. And the largest increase that you would see is the contributions to the borough. So all of the capital related stormwater projects, they actually transfer to the borough, and that's where they're shown as a capital asset. So that's all that amount is. That's the total cost of those projects. That was a significant increase due to the projects that took place. And the authority is what's called a discretely presented component unit of the borough. All that means is the authority rolls up into the borough's financial statements, which I'll cover at 7 o'clock later tonight. So they're shown all of the information that's included in that separate set of the financial statements. That's all also included in the borough's financial statements. So note 1 talks about the footnotes of the financial statements for the authority, talks about the relationship between the Stormwater Authority and the borough, and also talks about any related party transactions. So there's a management agreement that was signed because the Stormwater Authority does not have any employees. You rely on the borough to take care of all the management related services. So that footnote talks about all the expenses in accordance with that, as well as those assets that technically transferred over to the borough. We also issue what's called a communications to those charged with governance letter. Those are required in accordance with our auditing standards. Similar communications as the prior year. Our responsibility is to give an opinion on the financial statements themselves, but the financial statements are still the responsibility of management and the board. There were no new accounting policies that were adopted during the year. All significant transactions were recognized in the proper period. There are no sensitive estimates we have to bring your attention, no sensitive disclosures, no issues working with management. We had no difficulty in obtaining information. There was a material misstatement that was detected as a result of audit procedures. We proposed material adjustments in order to convert to cash basis of accounting. So that was talked about more in length in the separate management letter that was issued to the board. No disagreements that arose as part of the audit. We obtained representations from management in order to issue the financial statements. No consultation with other accountants that would arise to try and obtain a second level of opinion. And we also issued the DCD report. So that was required to be filed with the state, and that was filed electronically with the state, and that we give a regulatory basis opinion on that. So that was unmodified in accordance with, because it has to be prepared in accordance with DCED reporting instructions. So that's why we give that type of opinion. And as I mentioned, the separate management letter talks more in length about the types of journal entries that we propose, but the financial statements are materially correct. We just made those adjustments to the financial statements.
Couple of questions.
Yes.
No, you made no comments on internal controls?
Correct.
Beautiful, thank you. Good job over there. Because we don't own any property and we don't have any employees, the asset, as you said, rolls up to the borough.
Correct.
So this, I think it was 685,000 really represents, mostly, I think, the Culp's Run project. Yeah. And other things that Robbie did during the year, repairing things.
Yeah, I think South Street too was another
Yes, and
significant
South
project
Street.
during the year.
Okay. Just want to clarify that. So we did a lot of work.
Yes, a
last
lot
year.
of work, a lot, significantly more than the previous year, about 473,000
Right.
more than 2022,
Yep.
more than 2021. So a lot of activity.
Pretty straightforward with cash
Yeah,
basis.
straightforward. I know.
Beats accrual, if
Nice.
you can do it. Any questions from the board on the audit or footnotes or any part of it?
Okay.
Wow, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate it, thank you, and we all do. Thank you for your hard work.
Thank you.
At this point, I believe that, look to our, we need to accept
Yes, that is the word.
the audit as presented. Okay? I think, and then it, again, I use the term, it rolls up into the borough's financial statements. And they take care of everything in the big picture. Okay, so would someone like to make a motion to accept the audit as presented, the 2022 audit?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion at all? Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition, same sign, not hearing any. Thank you very much. It's accepted.
The only other thing that the authority has to do is do the concise financial statement
And
in the newspaper.
Right, and publish it in the newspaper. It's an abbreviated financial statement that appears in the, quite, in the legal section of the paper. Okay. It's time for rain barrels. Deborah?
Is the speaker okay here, or do you want me to go up?
What?
You guys are all good here.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
This is a little slideshow I put together for our rain barrel workshop that we had on May 11th. We had an overwhelming response with approximately, well, over 60 people that were interested in the class.
And get some background for everybody, since this is a Gettysburg Borough Stormwater Authority workshop sponsored by the authority.
Correct,
really.
yes.
Okay.
So they're the folks that live within the borough town limits, and this is part of our public outreach for our MS4 program.
And we were working with the county on this as well.
This particular class we did, we do have a second class this Thursday, which we still have some available spots if anyone is interested. We are asking for a partial payment of $25 towards the materials because the cost went up considerably since the last time the materials were bought in 2011.
Okay.
So the workshop was on Thursday, May 11th. Oh. I don't think this works.
Battery dead, someone left
It
that
looks
on.
like it, you just hit the,
Yeah.
it says it's on.
Technical issues here.
Run up and get batteries, we find.
It looked like it had some. Okay, keeping it green, we partnered with Adams County Agricultural Soil Conservation District. They have a lot of best management practices at the facility there, so they actually have a little brochure with a tour that you can walk through and look at all the best management practices there, rain gardens and bioretention facilities and other best management practices. You can go to the next one. And our agenda, basically we had some opening remarks. We talked about MS4. We asked some of the people attending if they knew what it was. No one knew what it was. I asked them why they were interested in the class, and they said they got a free barrel. So we worked through some of that. I passed out a couple of documents for them to review. One of those was created by C.S. Davidson on our website, so it has a lot of information on there. We had someone speak about mosquito control and give out little mosquito dunkers for their rain barrels. Let's see. So we went over how to put those together, and we started working with the attendees. You can do the next slide. We had 27 borough residents sign up for the class. We had 38 on the list for a second class. The barrel cost was around $53 with tax if purchased through Adams County. We did use our tax exempt status, and we did save $81 when we purchased the 27 barrels for the class. The barrel cost was $1,350. The other supplies, and we did have a pizza for the folks there, were $156.76 for a total cost of $1,506, which came out to around $57 per person. And buying them outright was $53 through Adams County. So it was a nice benefit for the residents to come and do that for the public outreach. This is a handout that Adams County gives out, so we did pass this out as well, and it has some other water conservation tips on there, and about NPS pollution. You can go to the next slide. And then I put together a little cheat sheet for rain barrel maintenance, so they know to drain that in the wintertime, and periodically you do have to flush the water out and use it. It will get stagnant and create some algae, and there's ways to prevent that with vinegar and different other natural things that won't affect your garden or your plants. This was just a couple of examples here. The overall take, not many residents are familiar with MS4, and part of our requirements, as I mentioned, for our MCM1, it requires public outreach. And that would include articles, newsletters, social media, and other public events. So we just thought it would be fun to kind of get the community together and put together some rain barrels. These are just some of the photos from our class. We had some folks bring their children and families, and a lot of different people came, and we had several volunteers. We had this little little chap, and you have to climb in to put the spigot in. So we
He's
kind of
helpful.
he went all the way in there. He was one of the few people that fit. So I had some of the other people that got done early. We're helping some of the other citizens there. So everybody kind of worked together, and it was a really nice community project. So we had a lot of barrels with legs sticking out. But it was a nice event. It's just some other. Screens for the top. They were filing the holes and putting in the spigots.
Thanks for helping. Was it fun? Yeah. Having a good time? Yeah. Did you climb in one of the barrels? Yeah. You did? I saw that. Thank you for helping, because you're the only one that I think fits.
Next one here. So there's just some other photos, and then we also made some vinyl stickers for people to decorate their barrels. Some people wanted to go home and paint them, so we had a lot of different options. And once all of these the BMP barrels were installed, just within the borough, we would save 1,566 gallons of water. And these are some of the ones that were installed. I asked all the participants to send me photos of the rain barrels that they put in. This one was on Schoolhouse Alley. The owner noted Saturday's rain filled the barrel, and that's 58 gallons of water recycled at one household. And this is at 38 North Stratton Street. This homeowner put an extension pipe between two of his outdoor buildings to get to his back garden. And that was Mr. Frank Marone. He said I could use his photo in the presentation. But he did a great job and kind of put some perforated holes in there so it could kind of water things along the way to empty the barrel out, which was very nice.
Okay, this is my new rain barrel, decorated rain barrel, here behind 38 North Stratton Street. And it's all hooked up and actually working. And so I have the rain coming from the roof. We've got a third floor roof that empties to a second floor roof down the drain, down to a first floor roof. And I went out and purchased some of this hose, and I got it actually going all the way up to the gutter here, all the way down into the rain barrel. And as you can see, it's working. And I've got about a foot of clean rainwater down there beyond the screen right now. So the rain comes out of here, down here. Like I said, I got about a foot in there. And then I got my spigot here so I can fill planters. Hose connection at the bottom to put a hose, wash the sidewalk or water the grass. Then I have the overflow hose here, which again empties into a larger one and then goes behind my shed. Now the other side of the shed here in the backyard where I have a cement pad on the ground behind here where I keep my trash. Right along my fence, back here in this pad where I keep my trash and my bikes. And it goes right by. I cut a hole, a slight hole in it, so it actually waters this holly tree here. And then it empties into my backyard right here next to a garden. So with this new rain barrel system, I'll be able to successfully pull probably about 1,000 gallons of water off my 3 roofs into the barrel during the course of the year, be able to use the hose to water my lawn. The rest of it will go behind here and out over to my garden. And then I also, because the borough has a recreational fire, I actually have a small fire pit here in my backyard. So that water can also be used to extinguish the fire, which the law requires you have water sources within 100 feet of any fire, 2 feet or less. So I have my hose over here. I always keep water on a table, and now I actually have a hose hooked up right here in my backyard, which I can also use for that purpose as well. So again, this is the new rainwater barrel that I've successfully applied to my home to hopefully save clean rainwater to use and recycle for better purposes, and also to keep any washed materials from flowing into the stormwater drains and then down into the rivers and creeks to the Chesapeake.
Okay, and this is
Wow.
another one that we have on North Stratton.
Yeah.
No more videos, we're good.
You talk about efficient.
And this one is at 461 Baltimore Street, and they painted this one to match the brick, which was nice. And this was another on Springs Avenue. And our borough residents, with our 27 barrels, were conserved the 1,556 gallons of water. Adams County residents purchased 24 barrels, and that would save an additional 1,392 gallons. So combined within Adams County and the borough, it's almost 3,000 gallons of water with just, one large storm event. The end.
All right, thank you. Thank you. It's a nice project, and we should try to keep it going, and as we build a budget for the future, we ought to look at that, see if that's an expense that we want to underwrite going forward. Any questions for Deb? Thank you very much. It's a great effort.
No question,
Pat?
it's a comment. It's
Comment.
really an excellent program, and I think it's going to be significant based on the numbers. I mean, one or two of them, but when you did as many as you did. And I think the program is available all the time through the Adams County Conservation District over at the Ag Center.
Mm-hmm.
Because somebody wants to go out and do it on their own.
Right, and we will have barrels to purchase all the materials, and we would sell those at cost if someone wants to put it together. We do have the class this Thursday, 5 to 7, and I do have room if anyone is interested in attending. They can phone me at 717-334-1160 or email me, and we can get them in that class. And that is a $25 fee per household per barrel.
Okay,
So
yeah. And do you plan to hold a class in the fall?
I was just gonna do 2 and then 1 in the spring.
Okay.
Because I only budgeted enough for
Right.
the 2 classes, so I can do that for next year and do 2 at that time as
Okay.
well. So.
Okay. Great, great, thank you. Time to turn to the financial updates. Charles?
Yeah, the headline is there's $318,000 in the checking account for our liquid cash. Year to date, we're doing really well. If you look at our expenses year to date, they're all within our budgetary parameters, between a third used and 50% used in most categories. There's a couple cost overruns as it related to some insurance type things that were not were not available to us at budget time, but they're not huge cost overruns.
Is that a timing issue? Will they?
Timing issue every year.
Right.
We always budget at the time that we're waiting on quotes to come back from our insurance providers, and John will know this from sitting in my seat years ago. It's very frustrating every year. We know we want to do the right thing budgeting wise, but
I guess.
getting the quotes back in a timely manner is always a frustration to us. So we do our best, and usually we do a pretty good job of keeping it close. From a revenue perspective, obviously things will change dramatically in the next month as the next round of bills go out January 1. Unless there are other questions that would,
July 1.
Yeah,
what'd I say?
January,
Yeah, July 1, thank you, yes, a J month.
Have we, as we look at the projects, that we're undertaking and grants not received, and a lot of the projects that we have that will not be grant eligible, are we evaluating our fee as we go forward? Like, one of the things that, and this is the same with the recreational authority, when the stormwater authority was created, we don't really have appropriate seed monies.
We don't.
And we are maybe not right now in a circumstance that causes this to be emergent, but we will be at some point in the future.
I know Chairman Malocki and Engineer Clayball and I have had private conversations to this effect. So no, we haven't really talked about fee structure changes in a formal setting, but we're aware of this issue that you.
I'm looking at for for the following,
Yeah,
not for this
and-
year, of course.
Of course, yeah, it's too late for this year.
But for
The
when we go
fees
to
are
set, when
the
we go to
same
set
year.
another budget, it just seems that,
But, we all know there's a lot of big ticket items coming down the pike, and for both the borough and the stormwater authorities. So we should probably begin to entertain that conversation and set those priorities.
Mhm.
We know Chambersburg Street is a big one,
Right.
as are the channel walls,
Right.
borough
that's
wall.
what comes to mind immediately are things that are never probably going to be grant eligible.
Right.
Yeah, no one's going to pay for us to replace our failing pipes
Right.
under streets or masonry arch chambers. So, okay.
So it is on the radar.
Okay, no questions? Deborah, you have any comments on payments received for 22?
We're getting a few more of the liens paid off from the previous years with settlements. So we maybe have gotten 4 or 5 from the last meeting.
That's good.
So we're slowly coming around.
Okay.
And then some folks that just didn't realize they didn't pay came in and paid off a
Great.
bunch of liens. So hopefully we're doing well.
Well, maybe
so.
the next meeting you can give us the number.
Okay.
Okay, I know you weren't ready
Yep.
today, but.
Because there wasn't a lot of change from last month, maybe 3 or 4, so.
Okay.
And then the bills are going out, I'm working on purging those and grouping together some of the larger mailings to save on postage, and I'll pull all of yours out so you can have them with
Yeah,
it.
you can give those to us, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Okay. Questions, comments? Adam? You have a?
I have nothing to add other than, as Deborah gives me information about who has paid off their liens that were filed in previous years, we clear them, and it's been a few since last month.
Okay. Now, we have the item that caused us to revise the agenda. The Bream Alley MOU with Gettysburg Municipal Authority. It is a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding dated June 12th, 2023, between the Gettysburg Borough Stormwater Authority and the Gettysburg Municipal Authority to provide for the replacement of the stream channel wall associated with the sanitary sewer interceptor replacement project located along Bream Alley in the borough of Gettysburg. Questions, comments, discussion? We've talked about this before, and for people who may not be aware, this is the alley that runs from Middle Street over to Springs Avenue on a diagonal behind the Gettysburg Shopping Center. And the wall is falling in.
And I can recap the highlights, and I think Solicitor Boyer did a good job of explaining at the beginning when we were revising our agenda that we had all these discussions 2 months ago. When we had the meeting with GMA, we pretty much set the parameters that we want to team with them while they're doing their interceptor project to get the most bang for the buck with this project. We've agreed that we were going to pay for 2/3 of the cost of the wall, and they were going to pay for 1/3 of the cost. So everything has been pretty much agreed on a few months ago. We just never finalized that MOU document. It had to go to GMA for their approval. The only thing that Mark, I think, the only comment that he had back was just to make sure if we do get grant money, that we properly allocate that grant money. I hope that we have that issue. We'll find out next month.
Great problem.
Right. But aside from that, there really hasn't been any changes to the discussion that we had 2 months ago. So this is really just kind of an administrative
This is
procedure.
formalizing the.
Formalize everything we talked about 2 months ago.
Okay, thank you. Any comments, questions?
I'll just add, since I was one of them sitting in on the meeting, Mike and I sat in on the meeting with GMA. It went very smoothly. I think it's a fair arrangement where when they come down through there, the top part of that wall is going to go. And so the 1/3, 2/3 settlement, I think it's very fair to both the ratepayers of GMA plus stormwater payers. It's gonna save us both money, but
Right.
and it's gonna be needed to be done sooner or later, so.
And it's in rough shape.
Yes.
It's gonna fall in.
It is.
Thanks, John. Any other comments? Well, I will entertain a motion to approve this MOU with GMA. Would anyone like to make that motion as stated, as I just read? So I'm not going to read it again.
So moved.
Okay, thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Not hearing any? It passes. So I will sign this at the end of the, I'm the one who gets to sign it, I guess. Thank you. Okay, thank you. New business. We mentioned that already, didn't we?
Yep.
The annual report, that needs to be in the paper as well as the audit, right?
The DCED report just goes to DCED.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
that's, I'm sorry, that's filed by our auditors.
By the auditors.
We already did that electronically, you just have
Great.
to take care of the notice of audit
Okay.
publication.
And that's that little
Okay.
box.
Okay.
It goes to the
When
paper.
I said publication in paper, I thought you, never mind.
Yep, yeah, separate
Okay.
thing.
Now we turn to the first of two stormwater management plans. Chad, we'll begin with the McKee property. Can you give us some background here before
Sure,
we
sure.
jump into the motion?
And just administratively, Karen, as you're keeping the minutes here, these are two separate things. So the McKee, they're both listed under B, but the Miller one's a separate one from the McKee. So
Yeah,
just-
that should
Okay.
be a C, I guess.
Yep. So the first one there on your agenda is the Timothy McKee plan. This was a plan that we approved back around, I believe, October of last year. It's for a new residence at McMillan and Ridge Avenue. And at this point, the house is pretty much built. They built it on the previously approved plan. One of the things they realized during construction was that they only sized the driveway for 2 of the 3 cars that were garages that were proposed with the house, so they had to revise the driveway. I wasn't satisfied with that being an administrative thing. I wanted that to come back to you guys for approval. So that was the first set of revisions. There was a couple of things in the back. They had some more impervious area proposed originally with some swimming pools and some different things, and that has somewhat been eliminated. Now it's just a patio with a hot tub. So there has been a little bit of a reduction there. But the other thing that came up, as we heard in a public comment period, is the neighbors were concerned about the swale that runs along the right side. And just so that you understand, the way that this plan works is there's a berm that exists. If you go out there and look at it, it's a pretty massive berm that exists around the front of the house. That berm does 2 things. It captures the water off of the new impervious area from the new house and controls that water before it releases it into the public facilities. But it also creates a diversion for the bypass flow that comes off of the National Park Service. National Park Service is all vegetated area, so during a lot of smaller events it doesn't get a lot of water, but during bigger events it can certainly take a significant amount of water through that swale area. So we did meet out there, as you heard in the public comment period, and heard all the concerns from both sides. The property owner did agree to go back and take a look at the plan and make some revisions to the plan. At this point, they're looking to lower the berm by about 3 inches. That's all the further they could lower it without 3 inches, without changing the requirements of our ordinance for the stormwater volume and rate control. But the bigger change that they're going to be able to do is they're going to be able to move the berm further to the west away from the neighboring property. So it's a variable distance on how far they're moving it, but it's somewhere in, I'm going to say, the 7 to 10 feet range from that easement area. There was an easement area that goes up along the side of the property that's considered 15 feet wide, so that new berm is going to be completely, or the top of the berm will be completely outside of that 15-foot easement area. So that should be good news to the folks in attendance here. I'm much happier with the new revised plan. I wish we could have reduced the berm even further, but like I said,
according to our current ordinance standards, we can't. It's something that I want to just give a little plug. I have been working on a new stormwater ordinance, and I'm going to be coming to you guys over the next couple of months for revisions. We're due for a new ordinance per requirements from DEP. We can have some discussions on what we require. There's a difference between requiring an engineer to do it and requiring a certain amount of volume and rate control. So we can make some adjustments if you guys are concerned about what you've seen out there. You still want to have the control of having a professional do a plan, but maybe be more lenient with rate and volume control. So that's something that we can consider as we're moving forward, but I wanted to mention that as it stands, that's all the further we could reduce that berm. It's more of an aesthetics thing, I would say, with the height of the berm that you see out there. So
Okay.
So we have a copy of this.
Yeah, it was sent to us. It was.
Yeah, the
it was
copy of the
part of
plan
the
was
agenda.
emailed I out got a
Mm-hmm.
last. letter.
It's in the, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in,
I got a letter.
I think it was attached to the agenda. There were a number of documents attached.
It's hard sometimes.
Yeah, you got the
I know.
plan attached to the agenda, and then separately I sent my letter,
Yes.
just email from me. So the
Okay.
the plan would have been included with the rest of the
Right.
agenda stuff.
It can be hard to track
It's, yeah.
the things for this
It's a lot.
authority. They get
It's a lot.
very
we-
hard to
we
find.
received- Exactly. We received a lot of stuff.
Yeah, so I have an agenda, draft minutes, labor distributions, revenue and expense, checks, invoices, and a rain barrel workshop documents. On that email, I do not have a.
Did you get something from?
Oh, hold on here. Thursday. Okay, so there are two different.
Yeah, maybe it came in a different.
There are two emails which some have the same topics and some do, or some content and some do not. Alright, let me crack that open. Okay.
And while Wes is taking a look at that, I will say one other comment that we wanted to make sure of when we saw the revised driveway for this third car garage I was talking about is where it crosses the sidewalk, and that's why we had Robbie involved with the HOP. We wanted to make sure that the water wasn't crossing the sidewalk and creating an icing condition on the sidewalk, so we did make them have some revisions to that component as well, but we're kind of getting into the weeds now. It's something that Robbie and I handle on our ends of things, but.
Is there a narrative also, or just the drawing?
Yes, there was a. It might not be in your packets because the narrative in the report's a really thick document.
Okay.
So they send, no, not that. There's a
Their
thick
notes are
document
basically-
that the engineers would print and bind in a big binder. So it probably didn't get added to your document just because of the file size. And essentially that.
So he sent two emails on the same day. Charles did, and they're different. The one I was looking at came at 3:14 p.m. Thursday, June 8th.
Are you able to get onto the shared drive? Or is that, there's a shared drive for the Solar Authority? Do you not have access to that?
I don't think so.
No, we don't have access to
Yes,
that.
Pat.
When I get a chance.
What's that?
Okay.
But
This is for Chad. The runoff from the National Park Service, you said it's
Top
based on
left, scroll up.
vegetation. You have a certain formulas you use for that?
Yeah, well, I didn't do it. The applicant, Bob Scherer, the design engineer, provided all of the calculations for it. But yeah, I'm not. I'm assuming that he used something like a meadow for the runoff coefficients. Is that what the question is?
Mhm.
Because they cut down the trees, so it's no longer a wooded area. It's more like a meadow.
Okay. Yeah, I was referring, if you look at the environmental impact statement for that tree cutting, which is now, I guess, 20 years old, but it has a formula in there, so you think that's the one they used?
I don't know. I don't know that. That would be a Bob question.
in general, and this has to do with the Miller plan as well, because they're gonna have a stormwater retention basin or an underground, I assume, I'm trying to think of the actual term.
Infiltration pit, yeah.
Yeah, infiltration pit, thank you, which is on the side of a hill. But in general, if something's not working, okay, whether it's on Ridge or on Confederate, and I mean a stormwater BMP that's not working, that impacts neighbors, who do the neighbors call first?
Their attorney. You.
No, that's what, their attorney,
Well, that's
no,
the
who do they,
concern, right?
it's Deborah?
I do the inspections, and I did check all of those this, or last year for compliance and.
Right, but I mean
workability,
new
so-
work,
Yeah,
you know,
they would
because
call me, and then I would go out and do an inspection and then coordinate with Chad.
Okay, so.
And or the contractor or owner of the facility. We had some issues at the hospital where we worked with the contractor and they did some repairs. We had a pipe collapse, so
Right.
that did get repaired, and
Yep.
they just kind of worked through that, and that was found during my regular inspections.
Correct. And I'm not saying it's going to, but I'm just saying that this is a general statement for anybody in the borough. If something's failing, they should be calling you.
Yeah,
Okay?
certainly, if that stormwater basin's not, if the water isn't flowing through that stormwater basin properly and it's filling up and flowing over the berm, they should be calling into the borough. That stormwater basin, for the McKee property is sized for the 100-year event.
Right.
Now we all know that the 100-year event, something that happens more than once every 100
It
years
seems
now.
that way.
And in fact, DEP changed the language that they use to the 1% annual chance. They don't use that 100-year event anymore.
Oh.
But I think one thing to make sure that we're using a differentiator between the Miller project that we're going to be talking about here in a couple minutes and the McKee project is the McKee project was over 10,000 square feet of new impervious area, so it had that 100-year event component.
Right.
There shouldn't be very often that those stormwater basins don't handle all of the water. If those basins are full because it's that big of a stormwater event, probably so is all of the streets at that point.
Right.
And there's going to be a point in time where that area, and John knows this as good as anybody, when the storms get big enough, all of the inlets and everything's full. So those basins should pretty much work up till that event. And we did have some events like that right after that. The trees got cut down from the National Park Service. So,
Do you remember, do I remember correctly, 100-year events like 3.02 inches? That sound about right?
no, it's more like seven something. 3 is 25 or 50-year event. The 100-year event's like 7 inches, a little over 7 inches.
Is that in what period of time?
24 hours.
24 hours, okay.
They only have 24 hours for it to be absorbed into the BMP.
And then you have 72 hours for
72
after
hours.
the event for the stormwater facility to
Doing all
dewater.
that math. So that math for them isn't that longer document.
That's right.
Okay. Pat?
Hey, I was just trying to get the timing set on this. Is there an urgency to get this approved tonight?
Yeah, the property owners would like to have this approved just because they have everything else built. They're hoping to move in on July 1st is what I was hoping. So they're making this change. The only thing that changed, again, that they had to change from what you guys approved back in October was this edits to the driveway, which was a little bit less impervious area in the back, a little bit more impervious area where the driveway is. We wanted to make sure that water is getting to the inlet, which it is. So that's really what you guys are approving is that change to the plan.
Right.
The matter with the berm was something that they didn't really, the old plan was compliant, but they wanted to do something to make it a little bit better, which I'm glad they did because I think it is better the way that they made the changes. So those changes are happening along with this. But really the thing that's required, that I required them to come to you guys for, was that added driveway.
Right. And that's been taken care of now.
And right now it's just a stone driveway, there's no pavement, and I told them that they can't pave until we have this
Right.
approved.
Okay.
So our discussions out there, we had talked about a catch basin at the back to catch the water coming off the Park Service before it entered the swale to run down. I mean, it's the same amount of water, it's just whether you're gonna pipe it underground or put it on top. If this is the current plan, I don't see that. Was that eliminated?
Yeah, that was something that they threw out as a potential option. To be honest with you, I didn't love it whenever they threw it out there as an option, just because of some of the other conflicts that it would create. There's a tree there that they would have to cut through the roots for, and I'd be afraid that they would kill that tree. I think keeping that tree the way it is better for the neighbors. It keeps that water pushed over on the McKee's property. There's also a gas line in there. I'm not sure if that pipe would be able to work with the utility conflict there. As John said, that adding a pipe there really wasn't going to change anything in terms of the conveyance of a big storm event. You're only going to get water, a significant amount of water off that field during big storm events. At that point, the water's going to flow downhill to the inlet anyways. So I don't really know that pipe was going to add any benefit. I thought the bigger benefit or the better benefit would be to move that berm over, which is what they agreed to do. And so because they were able to do that, they avoided that pipe, adding that pipe.
Okay. Any other comments,
Well,
questions?
I was trying to frame what's changed here. So they've already done everything except for paving the driveway that this new plan requires.
Paving the driveway, and now they'll be moving the berm that they've already built, they'll be moving that over.
So it hasn't been done then.
No.
The berm's
No.
done as it exists, they're gonna be moving it, they're gonna be redoing the berm, and they're gonna be paving
Based on the new plan.
Right, based on the new
Okay,
plan.
so they haven't done what the changes based on a new plan yet.
Right.
So they're waiting for our approval for
We're gonna
that.
wait for approval, yep.
Did any of the contours in the back change? Or is it just a berm down along the side?
Just the berm along the side. And the berm along the other side, your side of the property, that didn't change at all. That's the exact same berm.
I guess I'm looking at this and I'm trying to interpret what they have drawn. Can you just kind of describe what BMPs are using to keep that water on site from their impervious? that they
Yeah,
added?
so the BMP is a traditional stormwater basin. Some people would call it a rain garden, but because this is built for the 100-year event, we would call it a stormwater basin. So
Is that
there's
that
a stormwater basin in the front and a stormwater
triangular
basin in the back.
sort of shape there in the southwest,
Yeah.
pardon me,
Yeah,
southeast
there's a stormwater
corner.
basin here.
That one there, and then the one
Yeah.
on the other
And
side,
there's another
right?
stormwater basin here.
So those are surface features.
They're both, open to the surface. Neither of them are underground infiltration pits.
No, we'll get to that.
Imagine they have.
And then there's on this basin here, there's an outfall structure, there's some pipes that allow the water to discharge.
There'll be an overflow pipe in that basin.
That's correct.
They create, I mean, what's the slope there? Does that pose any kind of like a collapse hazard?
No, the slope that they provide, we require at least a 3-to-1 slope. We
For the
prefer
basin
4-to-1
itself?
slope. That's right, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it wouldn't get to a collapse hazard until you get to more like a 1-to-1. The angle.
Yeah, you
proposed
pass
for
45
soil is
degrees,
like
and
a
that's pretty
1-to-1.
much the standard. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So it shouldn't be anywhere close to that.
Okay.
Charles, did you? Okay.
Yeah, how would you describe what those stormwater basins look like, maybe compared to East Broadway or another place where they've been used? Is that similar?
No.
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 So it's.
I'm trying to just think about what the aesthetics of it when you're.
Things on Broadway are truly rain gardens. They're built for a 6-inch water depth so that plants can still survive in them. These are traditional stormwater basins because they're built for the 100-year event.
And that's Ridge right there on the right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Now,
that-
They're like the ones at the school.
Well, I've
ones
looked at them, so the bottom of the basin is at the original level of the property, because it looks like they created berms, right? About how high, 3 feet?
They're pretty high, yeah, I think.
Probably closer to 4.
4, yeah. So that's what it looks like. It looks like a pretty substantial.
I should have gone over there.
175,
That's all right.
so not about 2 feet high.
Drawing
They're
is-
2
it's
feet
drawn
high
as
from the
3.
inside of the berm. From the outside of the berm, it's closer to 4.
Right.
Of course, it only has that bottom circle is 530. They could go to 529 and change, and it would.
Yeah, because this drops off about 2 feet from here to here.
Didn't go a whole foot.
So the berm at this bottom end is going to be closer to 4 feet high.
Yeah. They're pretty massive.
Wow.
And just so you know, like again,
Looks like.
I'm giving you hints of having some discussions about this with changes to stormwater ordinances, and in a lot of municipalities, they would allow things. They would allow simplified approach for these kind of things. And this would be designed for only the 2-year event for volume control. The 3-inch storm, not the 7-inch storm. In our ordinance, because our cutoff is 800 square feet, and then we have a 5,000 square foot where you can still do volume only. As soon as you go over 5,000 square feet, which is this project, then you go to full rate control. That's what's driving the size of these stormwater facilities.
You think it'd be wise to change those in an urbanized environment like we generally have?
That's what he's hinting at here.
Well, and we want. I think we should start having that
You're hinting at
discussion.
that, but I question that.
Yeah.
If that's really a wise.
Well,
we
one of
don't
the
have a lot
reasons
developable
why
space.
one of the reasons why we were concerned about it, and we wanted to draw that line and that cutoff before. This is going way back, and the Planning Commission actually made this recommendation, was that we wanted professionals preparing these plans because we were more concerned about the conveyance and how that was going to affect the neighbors than we were about saving the crabs in the Chesapeake Bay. We can still capture the requirement for a professional to prepare a plan, even if we're more lenient with this rate control component. And they could still capture a significant amount of water with the volume control if we wanted to consider that moving forward. Again, we don't have to belabor today's meeting.
Right, and we're not going to get into that
yeah.
now, but that's something we should think
They could
about.
have done other things, though, could they not, if they chose to?
They could have potentially put in infiltration pits.
That's what I
yes,
mean. Like
yeah.
this is they
They
made a
made
conscious
choices.
choice from a
Right.
menu of BMP options.
Right.
I know there are limited options, but they exist.
Yeah.
They do exist, yes.
Okay.
Pat, you got another one?
Well, this was not about this specific case, but we've ventured into what we're looking at in the future a little bit.
Right,
And I'm
exactly.
just trying to understand that, like, the original requirement came from Act 167. Every township municipality had their own stormwater ordinance.
Mhm.
They're not the same, which is typical in Pennsylvania, unfortunately. So, has there been something new issued? You made reference to DEP. Have they changed the requirements of that act?
Yes. There are some new things that they changed and they want to see in ordinances.
Well, how did those changes come out? They didn't revise the act that I'm aware of.
No. They did not change the act. This is directly related to one of the requirements that we have to show every year when we report in September for our annual report for our MS4 permit, is that we're consistent with the most up-to-date DEP model ordinance. They made some changes in their model ordinance that causes us to have to update a new ordinance.
Okay, is that something you can send out to the?
Yep, we're gonna have meetings about, and I'll take you through all of the changes that are being proposed. It's things like how one of the big ticket items that they wanna make sure of is how you're dewatering chlorinated pools. That's one of the big changes that they wanna start seeing in ordinances. So it's things like that that's now causing us to have to update our ordinance. But while we're updating it, now's the time to think about this. So I would invite you to all go out there and take a look at this stormwater basin and see what your thoughts are before we start having these conversations over the next couple of months.
Yep. That would be worth going to see, just taking a visit, because.
I see it every day.
I know. And I almost see it every day
I've seen
too,
it.
so.
Impressive.
Okay.
We'll sell tickets.
Let me read the motion, please. Motion to approve the stormwater management plan for Timothy McKee, last revised 6/7/2023, conditioned on an updated stormwater management agreement to be enacted at the completion of construction. Someone would like to make a motion to accept this plan?
Approve.
Approve, I'm sorry, approve this plan. Well, I can make the motion, so I'll make the motion to do this. It meets all of the qualifications, correct?
It does.
Okay. I'll make the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, okay, thank you. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition?
One to say, no, I didn't
No,
oppose, I just want to
Or
say.
any
that-
abstentions?
Well, you have to have reason to abstain, but
Okay.
the, the plan really didn't come out until, when did we finally decide we got it?
What was that, the 7th? What was the final plan, Chad?
6, 7. Yes, the 7.
Came to us, 167.
Okay, let me back up. We have a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. Any other, so, go ahead.
This is discussion.
This is discussion.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah.
So-
That was just, it's a lot of technicalities to review by the time we got it, which I didn't get for my own personal reasons.
Right.
Just saying I'm not sure there's enough time to review it adequately.
Okay. Okay. Any other comments? So we have.
We voted though.
We voted.
Didn't we just
Yeah,
vote?
I think we just, that's what I'm saying. I think we just voted. We have, and let's, show of hands and a roll call vote. Let's do it this way.
Charles?
All in favor?
Well,
I'm sorry.
Roll call vote.
Pat?
Sorry.
I don't know if abstaining, I don't have an objection to it, so I'm abstaining if that's possible.
Okay.
Is that possible?
It is possible.
Okay.
So, okay, abstain.
Mhm.
Mike?
Yes.
John?
I abstain because I own neighboring property.
And Aye. So we have 3 yeas, 0 nays, and 2 abstentions.
So it passes. Yep. Okay, thank you. Chad, can you move on to the Miller plan at 4 Southwest Confederate Avenue?
And this is the property, you guys are probably familiar with the property. It's the old Adams County Historical Society property at the corner of West Middle and Confederate Avenue. There isn't as nearly as much with this property. They're putting in a new garage, but there's an existing garage that they're tearing down, so the add-in impervious area is negligible. They're adding a swimming pool with some drains around a swimming pool. So this one was much easier. We did provide a review of the plan, provided comments for it. At this point, they have fixed, I have 3 bullets here that were outstanding from our last review. The first one was for their infiltration test reporting sheets to be updated, reflecting the accurate depth. The detail of the level spreader to be provided, and the stormwater O&M agreement to be enacted. Since then, they have already provided us with the accurate depth of the infiltration test, but we want to keep that on there because it was just emailed to us. It wasn't included in their formal report submittal to the borough, so I would suggest that all 3 of those conditions be the conditions of approval. So you do have my recommendation to approve it with those conditions, should you be so inclined.
Any questions of Chad? I will read the motion. It's the motion to approve the stormwater management plan for Ian Miller at 4 Southwest Confederate Avenue, last revised 6/1/2023, conditioned on revised infiltration test reporting sheet reflecting the accurate depth, detail of the levels spreader/infiltration trench to be provided on the plan, and enactment of the stormwater management operation and maintenance agreement. Okay. Any questions on that? If not, I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
So move. Second?
Second.
Second, thank you, Charles. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition, same sign. Not hearing any. Any abstentions? No? Okay, it passes, thank you.
And if, one thing I want to say before we move on is if you guys are interested in amending our administrative procedures, that could be something that we could also discuss when we do this new stormwater ordinance. Our ordinance does spell out that they have to submit everything to Deborah. If you would like her to, whenever she gets a plan, to distribute to all you guys, or have an acceptance process at the next meeting before it goes to the following meeting, or start pushing things out, that would be the time to have those discussions as well.
Okay. And I think there's some value and not overloading us with a bunch of, especially the BMP plans, but for us to at least know what they are, and I'm talking about things under 8,000 square feet, or
5,000,
5,000
yeah.
square feet, but things that are smaller that we don't need the detail, but it would be good to know that they're out there and they're happening, and they've been approved.
Yeah, because both of these plans, I agree with Pat. Not quite enough time to digest all this.
They're
Now,
complex.
the McKee plan for me is easy because I live there.
Right.
I've seen the whole thing.
And it's easy for me because I'm always around there.
Yeah. But I mean, this Miller plan, I'm looking at it now for the first time, and yeah, and I mean, I trust Chad, that's not the point. But the point is, if I'm going to be voting for something, I'd like to have a little bit more timely information.
And,
Yeah, you
know,
could have something built into your procedures that says, upon submittal, the Director of Historic Preservation will distribute everything, or the applicant has to distribute to everybody. Or you can even do like the MPC requires for a land development plan, is at the next regularly scheduled meeting, we're gonna accept it for review. We don't even start the review until you guys have a copy of it at your next meeting, and then the following meeting, you approve it. Now, property owners aren't necessarily gonna like that, adding a whole nother month to the review procedure for simple things, but there's plenty of options here we can have discussions on.
I think
especially for the larger things.
I think my concern is, like, over the past few years, we have done some things to try to make properties more usable, or even such that properties can be subdivided. In the R2, we changed the street frontage requirement. I think it's down to like 30 feet. So the borough is such a built environment that anything that is done will have an impact upon someone adjacent. I know that we've discussed the neighbors in this situation, and the reality is there are only 2, which may seem like a lot. Where I live, there are 6 because of the way the lots are laid out. And that can be quite possible in many locations. So, I mean, I know we have a property on Stratton Street where that provision was changed for the R2 for the purpose of allowing them to subdivide. They have not done that. But if that were to ever occur in locations like that, you need to have the ability to have an adequate review and to ensure that, you know, if something is, you know, just a few thousand square feet, might not seem like a lot, but I think it does really require, you know, professionals' input, and that stormwater is properly controlled on site.
That's right, that we get it right. And
It's
you know,
going to have an impact.
even the Miller property, there are downslope folks.
Sure.
Yeah.
So if there's
Good
a,
time.
yeah, right?
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of
And-
your
and
rural
so-
townships,
Oh,
it makes,
I get
it
it.
makes a lot
Right.
of sense
Yeah.
to
Not
cut
2
this
people.
loose and
Yeah.
not worry so much because there's no one next door, or next door is a few thousand feet away.
But-
Next door in the borough could be 5 feet away.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, I mean, so even if it's only the 5,000 square foot plans and above that we require to accept before, and it does push it back a month, I don't know how many developable properties are left. There's not that many in town, basically a handful. Here again, do your homework, because I'm very much convinced after what I've lived through, the property owner and the developer did not do their proper homework. Had they done their homework, they would have been aware of some of these issues before they started moving dirt.
And for clarification, my presumption is that with the national, this is kind of a different topic, but with the National Park Service, when it cut all the trees, my presumption is that since they didn't add impervious surface, there's really no foul on their end, even though they completely changed the dynamic of that area.
Can I address that?
Pat, you probably are an expert, yeah.
Well,
A little bit. I mean, yes, that's your field. Like,
Yeah, well, it's not my field, which
Little
is why I don't go against Chad, because it is his field. But I did read the environmental impact statement, and it's clearly spelled out in there that there was a 20% increase when they cut those trees down of runoff from that area.
I feel like you know a lot more about water than I do.
Oh,
I guess that's what I'm trying to
sometimes,
say.
yeah.
And I remember, looking at the run there in flooding scenarios after that, and it seems like there was a dramatic change, and there was never really I guess there's really no redress. If someone were to cut down a massive number of trees, they can kind of do what they want.
Well, and that's why, you know, it does, you know, light up my brain to think, if this happens again, it may not be on our watch. We really have to look out for the borough residents, even if our partners are the National Park Service, they could have put in a retention basin or something out there, even something shallow, to stop all that water coming down the slope. And that would have helped out many, many neighbors. And again, I know that that's maybe not on their agenda item, but it might be.
Well, it's interesting to examine the ecological.
It's for us to
versus
bring
the-
up for in the future.
The ecological versus the historic, because they're dealing with it right now. They're in the area below Little Round Top where they have those beavers that have built their dam, and that's an interesting question, right? Like, what do you do there? So it doesn't reflect the historic nature of that location, but are you going to kill a bunch of beavers by breaking down their pond? Probably
Yeah.
not.
Well, we can have a
You know,
sidebar
here,
on that, but.
Here, do you sacrifice a little bit of historic element for the, safety of everybody involved? And it seems like that wasn't done.
It wasn't.
Wasn't considered, I don't think. Okay. Well, any other questions, comments? With this public comment period that we're at right now, anybody from the public would like to make any other comments? Sandra?
We'd just like to thank you for the discussion and for your concern for our worries and anxieties about this situation. I'm not sure I expected this level of care,
Well,
so thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you. Okay. Time to adjourn. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Okay, second?
Second.
Thank John. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. The meeting is over. Thank you.
The June meeting of the Borough Council, the Borough of Gettysburg. Everyone could please rise for a moment of silence to the pledge, please. Pledge.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, good evening and welcome. A few announcements this evening. An executive session of the Borough Council, the Borough of Gettysburg, was conducted immediately following the adjournment of the May 22nd, 2023 monthly work session of the Borough Council, consistent with Section 708A1 and Section 708A5 of the Sunshine Act. The executive session of the Borough Council will be conducted immediately following the adjournment of this evening's monthly general business meeting, consistent with Section 708A1 and Section 708A5 of the Sunshine Act for the following purposes. 1, to provide information to discuss matters involving the employment, terms and conditions of employment, and investigations of complaints, and evaluation performance of current borough employees. 2, to review and discuss matters of borough business which, if conducted in public, could lead to the disclosure of information or matters of confidentiality protected by law. All right, you have the agenda in front of you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second. Motion and a second. Any questions or comments about the agenda this evening? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And you have the minutes for our May 8th meeting, our special meeting on May 22nd, as well as the work session of that same evening. Before we accept that motion, are there any corrections to any of those minutes? Okay, seeing none, can we have a motion for the approval of the minutes of the council meeting on May 8th, the special council meeting on May 22nd, and the council work session on May 22nd?
So moved.
Okay, motion, we have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any further comments or questions? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, we have minutes. That takes us to our special presentations. Our first is from our auditor. Yes, please.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jennifer Kruver-Kibbe, the partner at Mar Dissel. I'm going to go over the highlights of the 2022 Borough audit. And the summarization on this slide, this is what's included in our letter addressed to members of management and Borough Council. It's what we call a communication to those charged with governance. So in accordance with our auditing standards, we're required to have these communications with management and those charged with governance. And it talks about our responsibility is to provide an opinion on whether the financial statements are materially correct, but the financial statements themselves still are at the responsibility of management. The significant policies are included in the notes 1 to the financial statements. There were no significant changes for the current year, no changes in your accounting policies. The most significant accounting estimates are the same as last year's, your estimable lives of capital assets and fair value of investments. There are no significant disclosures that we have to bring to your attention. There was no difficulties in engaging with management and getting information. We received everything we needed in order to complete our audit timely. As part of our audit procedures, we did come across some material adjustments that we had to propose to management. Those were approved by management, and those are included in the financial statements themselves, and that we reported as a material weakness because of the dollar amounts of those, but that's included in a separately issued letter. We had no disagreements with management as part of our audit procedures. We did receive representations from management in order to release the financial statements, all the same verbiage as in previous year. We're not aware of any consultations with other independent accountants. We'll be trying to get a second level of opinion. And all issues discussed prior to retention were in the normal course of our professional relationship. And in the financial statements, there's some supplementary information and other information. We do perform limited procedures, but we do not opine on that information. It's the same information that was included in last year's, combining schedules as well as budget to actual. The results of the audit itself, we give what's called an unmodified opinion. And the opinion, that's the best opinion that the borough can receive, where we state that the financial statements are materially correct in accordance with a modified cash basis of accounting. So it's the best you can receive. And the basis of accounting, as I mentioned, is modified cash, similar to 2021. So what's modified for is fair value investments. The financial statements also include debt and capital assets and some escrow liabilities. And this year, for 2022, because the borough spent more than $750,000 of federal funding, of course, with the American Rescue Plan funding, as well as the CDBG funding that was received from the county, that kicked you over the $750,000 threshold. So we performed what's called a separate compliance attestation. The federal government tells us exactly what to look for in those audit procedures for American Rescue Plan funding. So we give what's called a modified opinion, so it's the best you can receive, where we stated that the borough was in compliance with all those material requirements as outlined in accordance with that compliance supplement. And also to mention, the financial statements include the Stormwater Authority. Stormwater Authority is what's called a discretely presented component unit, same as last year. For 2022, the GMA was not required to be included because of the change of their debt restructuring, so that was not included in 2022. This slide summarizes some financial statement highlights from comparing 2022 to 2021 on the governmental activities. So this includes all of the funds as well as capital assets and the related debt. So in the assets and deferred outflows, that includes all of the assets of the funds and capital assets. So you can see some fluctuations from prior year to current year. There was a big increase in cash and investments in 2022 as a result of the net income during the year. Liabilities decreased in accordance with the regularly scheduled general obligation bond payments. Revenues increased. I mentioned CDBG money came from the county for a large capital improvement. There was also an increase of the stormwater assets that were coming in from the Stormwater Authority, and tourism keeps increasing for the borough, so there's also an increase in parking revenue. Expenses increased. That CDBG grant that I mentioned, also other increases across departments. And this slide provides some financial highlights on the governmental funds themselves. So this includes all of the funds, but on the cash basis. And the borough uses fund accounting to estimate, to ensure and demonstrate compliance with finance-related legal requirements. The focus of the governmental funds is to provide information on near-term inflows and outflows and balances of available resources. Now, you can see on the left, it talks about the governmental funds unassigned fund balance is 2.7 million. So what unassigned means is it's available for spending. So out of the total fund balance of all the funds, 37% is available for spending, and the rest of it is segregated into other groups, which are outlined in note 9 of the financial statements if you need to read that information. On the right there is a breakdown of expenditures of all of the governmental funds. Just like any other municipality, the driving costs are the public safety 42%, then public works at 31%. So these percentages are relatively similar to the previous year. And for the general fund alone, which is the general fund is the primary operating fund of the borough, the total change in fund balance, you had a net income of $267,000 when the borough actually budgeted for a significant loss during the year. And all of that information is included on page 37 if you want to see the difference between actual and what was budgeted of the financial statements. There are footnotes included in the financial statements, no new footnotes that I have to bring to your attention, but these are just some that I outlined last year. Note 1 talks about the reporting entity, including the Stormwater Authority. All of the major funds that are included report, the description is included in there, as well as a description of the modified cash basis of accounting. I mentioned capital assets. If you want to see significant changes, there's a roll forward of information, including note 5, and for note 4 for capital assets, note 4 for long-term debt, and the plunge plan information is included in note 6. And also, based upon our audit, we do gain an understanding of internal controls of the borough, but we do not opine on the effectiveness of internal controls. But if we do come across anything where it arises to a deficiency that would be a material weakness, we are required to report that in a written letter, what's called a management letter. And as I mentioned, we did have some material corrections that we proposed to management, and they agreed, and we made those in the reports. And those are outlined and included in the improving financial reporting comment. We also had just some best practice suggestions to improve some internal controls, reconciling parking enforcement revenue on a more regular basis, making sure capital asset documentation is reviewed and updated periodically and provided to us at the end of the year, and reconciling due to due froms between the funds on a periodic basis. All more detailed information is included in that management letter. And did anybody have any questions over what I covered or over the audit itself?
Any questions? Does not seem so.
Okay, thank you. Pleasure to serve the borough again.
Thank you. All right, that takes us to our Rain Barrel Public Outreach Program, which is a function of the Stormwater Authority. Ms. English.
Good evening. I'm Deborah English with the Director of Historic and Environmental Preservation. I'm the MS4 coordinator, and we did a Rain Barrel workshop for our public outreach, which is part of our requirements for our MS4 program. So we did a best management practice. There's a rain barrel in the back behind Chad, an example of one that we did in the workshop. It's a 58-gallon barrel, and we'll go through that. We partnered with Adams County to do this workshop on May 11th. And they also have requirements for the MS4. Our agenda just covered some general information on the MS4 program and some mosquito issues with stagnant water. We went over the rain barrel construction, and we had 27 borough residents that signed up for the class, and we had over 60 individuals interested. The barrels themselves run around $53. We had some tax exempt savings, and the cost per person came out to around $57 for the individuals within the borough that were qualified for the workshop with their MS4 fees. This is just a little bit of information that we passed out during the workshop, which has 10 water conservation tips for the residents that attended the workshop. And this was, I think, created by Adams County. So that was one of their informational brochures available. We also passed out some information on how to maintain your barrels through the winter, which they have to be drained and hopefully stored inside. They are plastic, and the UV rays would cause damage to them after some time. The overall take, many residents were not familiar with our MS4 program. When I asked why they attended the class, their main response was a free rain barrel. So That is part of our best management practices, so it fulfills our MCM program number. These are just some of the photos of the residents that were in the class. Everybody kind of worked as a group, and we had a couple of volunteers to help put them together. We had some very young little helpers that could fit inside the barrels. We had to kind of hold the inside of the attachments, and some people couldn't quite fit in there, so we had some very good helpers there. Oops, I skipped that one. We had a lot of barrels with legs coming out of them, and a lot of the folks that were there helped the other residents, and it was a really nice community project, and people brought their families, and it was a very nice event. Quick little video of everyone working. Images of some of the barrels.
Thanks for helping. Is it fun? Yeah. Having a good time? Yeah. Did you climb in one of the barrels? Yeah. You did? I saw that. Thank you for helping, because you're the only one that I think fits.
Just some other photos there. We also had some vinyl stickers so people could decorate their barrels. Some folks took them home and painted them or just used them as they were. And with our best management practice installed with those 27 barrels, we saved or conserved 1,566 gallons of water. And in a large rain event, that would probably fill a barrel. One of the residents, the next weekend, we had a rain event, and it said it almost filled their barrel. So it would also save, for watering gardens and things like that. These are some of the barrels that were installed. This one's on Schoolhouse Alley. Oops. And this one's on 38 North Stratton Street. This property owner also sent in a little video, and watch that.
Okay, this is my new rain barrel, decorated rain barrel, here behind 38 North Stratton Street. And it's all hooked up and actually working. And so I have the rain coming
from the roof. We got a third floor roof that empties to a second floor roof down the drain, down to a first floor roof. And then I went out and purchased some of this hose, and I got it actually going all the way up to the gutter here, all the way down into the rain barrel. And as you can see, it's working. And I've got about a foot of clean rainwater down there beyond the screen right now. So the rain comes out of here, down here. Like I said, I got about a foot in there. And then I got my spigot here so I can fill planters. A hose connection at the bottom to put a hose, wash the sidewalk or water the grass. Then I have the overflow hose here, which again empties into a larger one and then goes behind my shed. Comes out the other side of the shed here in the backyard where I have a cement pad on the ground behind the area I keep my trash. And right along my fence back here in this pad where I keep my trash and my bikes. And it goes right by. I cut a slight hole in it so it actually waters this holly tree here. And then it empties into my backyard right here next to a garden. So with this new rain barrel system, I'll be able to successfully pull probably about 1,000 gallons of water off my 3 roofs into the barrel during the course of the year, be able to use the hose to water my lawn. The rest of it will go behind here and out over to my garden. And then I also, because the borough has a recreational fire, I actually have a small fire pit here in my backyard. So that water can also be used to extinguish the fire, which the law requires you have water sources within 100 feet of any fire, 2 feet or less. So I have my hose over here. I always keep water on a table, and now I actually have a hose hookup right here in my backyard, which I can also use for that purpose as well. So again, this is the new rainwater barrel that I've successfully applied to my home to hopefully save clean rainwater to use and recycle for better purposes, and also to keep any washed materials from flowing into the stormwater drains and then down into the rivers and creeks to the Chesapeake.
And this is another one that was installed on North Stratton Street and Baltimore Street, and they actually painted the barrel to match the brick, which was kind of nice. Springs Avenue. And Borough residents with the 27 barrels will conserve 1,556 gallons of water per filling. Adams County also had some residents that purchased 24 barrels, so that would conserve 1,392 gallons for a total, with our borough residents that did our class seminar, of almost 3,000 gallons of water. It was a nice team event. It was a great family event. I think everyone really enjoyed it, and we do have another class scheduled for this Thursday, 5 to 7 p.m. I do have some spots available if anyone is interested. They can call me at 717-334-1160, extension 238, and we can get you in that class. There is a $25 fee. The supplies went up since the last class when we purchased the materials, so if anyone would like to do that, I can get you in that class. The end.
Any questions?
I would add real quickly that Pennsylvania Municipal League, in partnership with Sustainable Pittsburgh, is bringing their sustainability conference to Gettysburg this fall. And they've asked Gettysburg Borough to present this at that conference and do a breakout session. So folks from across the state can make green barrels here in Gettysburg, throw them in the back of their car, and take them home to their communities as well.
Very cool. I would note that the video in that presentation, I believe, was probably recorded in May. I did not mention earlier that the borough does have a burn ban in effect.
Yes, that was a while ago.
Please do not, under current conditions, I know that rain today did not rain substantially enough to really make a dent. Do not burn, and that includes do not set off things like recreational fireworks that I know that the state in their infinite wisdom permitted a few years ago at a larger extent. So just be cautious about what you're doing with any type of ignition source outside. All right, thank you. All right, that takes us to the public comment session. This is our first public comment session of the evening. This is restricted to items that are on the agenda. The second public comment session is not restricted to those items. So if you have public comment, I'd ask that you use the podium so the people at home that can hear you provide your name and address. And so public comment related to items on the agenda. All right, seeing none, we'll go on to our current and old business, starting with the Department of Planning, Zoning, and Code Enforcement. Ms. Marshall.
Hello, you've all received my department update. I do have one announcement to make. We have now online permitting available for yard sale permits, solicitation of contributions and gifts, and also transient retail permits. So anybody who's looking to get a yard sale permit, you can get it the traditional way, but you can also go on our website and get it online. Yard sales are allowed 2 days consecutively. The permit allows for 3 days, so that because it activates immediately when you get it, so it allows you a day in advance to get your permit. But yeah, you can just log in online. As long as you fill out the information and pay the fee, you'll immediately get an email with your permit, so you don't have to come into the office or and it's very quick and easy. We also have an update on our rezoning effort. We have had our second group committee meeting, and we're now looking at the sort of neighborhood character areas that will inform the revised zoning map. And to that effect, obviously, of course, again, this will be a standing agenda item on the Planning Commission meetings on the 20th, but the Planning Commission will also be at the Adams County Farmers Market on Saturday the 24th with sort of that character areas map to get some comment and public feedback on that. So if anybody wants to attend that, we'll be there with a booth. We've completed the administration section of the ordinance, which is essentially the procedures mostly dictated by the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code, so it's kind of the boring part, but also the easy part to get out of the way, since there's not a lot of it's dictated by the Municipalities Planning Code. So so now we're working on the zoning map. We anticipate that discussion to go on for a couple of months, and then we'll start to get into what standards we want to apply to each zoning district. So we have a zoning hearing board hearing coming up this month, Wednesday the 28th, for a special exception and variance application relating to dimensional standards for the Gettysburg Station site. And then we also have a planning commission meeting on the 20th. That item will also be on that agenda. One of the requirements for that application, because they are looking for the extended height, mixed use extended height provision of our zoning ordinance, that application was forwarded to Borough Council, and if Council wishes to provide any comment, you can do so at this time. I did want to give a little bit of a history on the site. The site redevelopment began in 2001 when the borough started looking at efforts to redevelop what was at the time a closed gas station and two functionally obsolete dilapidated buildings. And in 2007, they formed the Gettysburg Economic Development Corporation, specifically to manage the redevelopment of that site. In 2009, a portion of the site was sold to the Transit Authority, and that's where the Transit Center now stands. In 2013, the Adams County Industrial Development Authority purchased the property from ACNB Bank. And then they did some site clearing, and also the borough relocated stormwater infrastructure to help ready the site for development. In 2014, the site went under contract with a developer who ultimately did not proceed with the project, and their contract expired in 2015. In 2018, the current developer entered into a contract, and they executed the purchase of the site in 2021. Their submission and getting into this process was slowed significantly by COVID, which impacted the market for some of what they originally intended to submit. So their current application, while they're not complete with architectural and engineering, includes 185 residential units, approximately 7,000 total square feet of first floor restaurant space, and 7,000 total square feet of first floor retail. This mix would be accommodated in 3 different buildings, 2 3-story street-facing pedestrian scale buildings, one on Carlisle Street, one on Stratton Street, and then a 7-story building on the interior of the lot. To accommodate that, they're applying working closely, of course, with the Transit Authority to relocate the Transit Center to Stratton Street. One of the variances they're requesting is modification in the minimum height, which is 25 feet. The Transit Authority does not want a building that high, so that is one of their variance applications. The second one is in relation to one of the requirements for the extended height is that after 48 feet, there's a 30-foot setback on the upper floors. They are requesting to have the entire building set back 30 feet to accommodate buffer landscaping and fire access for that building, and also the apartments next door. So they're asking, they're looking to provide more of a buffer space between that building and the apartments that would be adjacent, which are currently, I think, owned by the Housing Authority and Interfaith. So that is the application that will be before the zoning hearing board later this month. If council members have any comments at this time, I can take them and forward them to the zoning hearing board.
Okay. Comments about Mr. Harris's plan?
I have a question.
Or questions, I'm sorry, questions.
When will he meet, Mr. Harrison? When will he meet with Harb?
So this application will also, we'll also be talking to Harb about this to provide their comment to the zoning hearing board, but the formal presentation to Harb will be for their July meeting. We anticipate it'll probably be 2 meetings, So it'll probably be July and August where they'll really get into the design of the buildings.
And will he be at zoning on the 28th?
The 28th of this month, yes. They had a scheduling conflict, and so they were not able to make it to Harb this month. So we're kind of staggering the meetings a little bit.
Yeah, and this whole session will deal specifically with the two variances. The one being that really, when we talked about the dimensional standards in terms of the elevated height, the concern was about shadows and creation of that. And we envisioned the step back model as a way to just address that. They have basically asked to essentially just step the whole building back, which will give a significant amount of additional space and green space, and also a little bit of additional space from the neighbors. The variation required for special exception required two items to be satisfied, two of the three, and Mr. Harrison is elected to satisfy all three. One being the relocation of the transit station, which is in line with Mr. The Transit Authority. Mr. Farr's wishes. Yeah, Rich Farr's wishes to get that over on the property that I would call, it's adjacent to the Sheeds home. Okay, it's the sliver property, and because of that property's shape, that kind of leads to the other variance. He is going to be able to do subterranean parking, which is a big win with the shape of that lot and the elevations it permits for that, and then of course the bike trail. So all three of those would be built as part of the submission. The other variance deals with that lot. When this zoning ordinance that we have was adopted, there was a shift in zoning at that time from the number of stories to a straight height calculation, and that's kind of how we ended up with the transit station that we have now. If you've ever been inside and noticed kind of the Echo model, it's because they were required to build it to 24 feet. Not unlike the Appalachian Brewing Company on Stanway Avenue, was built to 24 feet and has that food hall vibe very much because it doesn't say 2 stories, it says 24 feet. So the shape of that lot doesn't really lend itself to a 2-story or 24-foot building, nor is that what Rabbit really wants anyway. Freedom, I guess I should say it is now, Freedom Transit. So I think that'll be an important session, and I hope that the submitter is successful in presenting an appropriate view of why they need those things. And his written documents indicate, I think, that he will.
Yeah, I would add too, if you can pass this on, I think the applicant has been extraordinarily respectful of the borough's wishes here. I think he's gone out of his way to come up with a plan that is contemporary, yet respectful, and he has peppered the project with so many, little wrapped Christmas presents for the borough, infrastructure improvements. The variance he's requesting here is extremely reasonable, and I really hope that they will grant it.
Other comments? There will be a significant amount of open space on the parcel, which I think is what he was able to do. All right. Any other questions for Ms. Marshall? Otherwise, do you have anything else for us this evening? All right, that takes us on to historic and environmental preservation. Ms. English.
We did not meet in May, and you have my report. I don't have any motions on the agenda. We did have a shred event that was very successful. I'm sure Judy will go over some details during her recycling report. If anybody has any questions.
Any questions for Ms. English? Okay, if not, on to parking. Ms. Fissel.
Good evening. You all have my report. I have the comparisons there as normal. And the only other things I'd like to say, we had the routine garage maintenance that was completed, and I guess Chad will finish up with that. And we are looking for part-time employees if anyone is interested.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Fissel? Mr. Harbaugh, Public Works.
Good evening. You all should have my report. Just a couple highlights on it. We are starting on some agility projects with townships. We do have 2 of them under our belt now. We have a few more to do in the next couple of months, and two of those projects will be our alley restorations One is Gillian Alley and the other one is Legion Alley. And also some repairs to Culp's Run behind Mare Alley.
Yeah, in the area of the tree and so forth.
Yes.
Interesting little location. All right, any questions for Mr. Harbaugh or comments? Seeing Mr. Clayball.
Good evening. You have a copy of my written report. I have 3 quick updates for you. The 2023 street maintenance project is underway. As you guys recall, last month you did authorize us to award that project. There's 2 components to it. The first component is with JVI. They're going to be doing the mill and fill, the base repairs. They're going to be starting to work within the next month. We're hoping for them to have that mostly done by July 4th period, and then sometime in the end of July we'll be coming through with phase 2 of that, which is the chip sealing. So that'll be happening sometime end of July. I'll report on that next month. We did have a pre-construction meeting with the contractor last week, went over all of the responsibilities that he's responsible for, like letting Department of Emergency Services know whenever he's going to be shutting down the streets, and working with Robbie on closing parking, those kind of things. So I'll come back to the Racehorse Alley parking garage, because there is a motion on your agenda for that. The other update is with the bridge maintenance. We have completed the design, submitted the permits for that. So we're just waiting for the permits to come back, and we'll be opening bids on June 29th for that project. So hoping in July to present to you guys some good bids. Then finally, back to the Racehorse Alley parking garage. As Ms. Fissel said, we did complete the maintenance work that was budgeted for this year. We're pretty happy with everything that was done. Our final cost came in at $68,713.80, which is a little over $13,000 below the $82,000 budget. So we're pretty happy with the way that project performed, and there really isn't much to report on otherwise. So with that, I'll pause for questions.
Any questions? Okay. So we have the motion for the payment. Somebody make the motion, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the application for payment number 1/final in the amount of $68,713.80 to JDI Site Solutions in connection with the 2023 Racehorse Alley parking garage maintenance.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Questions about the maintenance project? All right. Not all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, any questions for Mr. Clayball? All right, seeing none, thank you. We'll go on to the Police Department. Chief Glennie, sir.
Good evening. You have my report, and there's a couple things that I failed to mention, good things that I overlooked, which is just, I'm not happy that I did. On May 20th was the Law Enforcement Memorial Day. It was held at the Emergency Service Center. There was a good turnout. I was honored to be asked to give the opening remarks there. Sergeant Pruitt actually led the group of officers in, calling the cadence. Officer Holden helped out with kind of directing traffic and making sure folks had the flowers that they laid at the base of the wreath. And earlier that morning, the Domestic Violence Task Force held a breakfast for law enforcement, and both our detectives, Detective Weichert and Detective Evans, were honored at that breakfast, as well as other area law enforcement officers, for their outstanding work in sexual assault and domestic violence cases. So I was very proud of those two detectives. Just exceptional work, hard work. And the ceremony went very well. I was pleased. We had a good representation at it. And the only other thing I'd like to remind everyone is Tuesday, August 1st is National Night Out. We'll be holding it at the Rec Park this year, hoping for a little bit bigger crowd than we've got in years past, not that it's been bad. We have a live band going to perform this year. The event's going to be from 4:30 to 8, with a live band playing music from 5:30 to 8. The fire company and some other food trucks, but the fire company specifically is going to have their stand open to sell hot dogs, hamburgers, some other items there as kind of a fundraiser. Area social services, area law enforcement, area public safety. Some businesses will all be there. We're trying to make it a real fun event. We're going to have some door prizes this year. As a matter of fact, Officer Wenrick, who's coordinating it this year for us, was out today. Local businesses, and I know he has a couple other days planned to stop out. And we've got some decent door prizes, so hopefully folks can come. Again, August 1st at the Rec Park, 4:30 to 8. Should be a good time. We'll have the dunking booth again this year. I'm not quite sure who we're going to have in that, Mayor.
I'll do it.
And we have some motions later on in the agenda very near and dear to my heart, and I will wait to comment on those at that time, unless council would like me to do it now.
We'll do that all at one time, I think.
Could you give me the hours again for National Night Out?
Certainly. It is 4:30 to 8.
Thank you, sir.
And rumor has it we might do a Narcan, handing out Narcan again.
Maybe so.
All right. Questions or comments for the chief this evening? Yes, Mrs. Butterfield.
I have a comment about National Night Out. When it first started, it was the idea of someone in our audience here, Darlene Brown, got it swinging, and I'm pleased that it continues because it's a wonderful concept and good for the community. And I'm happy that it continues, but thank you, Darlene, for thinking of it and getting it going.
Mr. Lawler. No accidents.
No, I only said I was going to ask for a year. The year's up.
Got it.
Have been no accidents, so that proves my point.
Understood. Okay. All right, that takes us to the Office of the Manager and Treasurer, Mr. Gable, Ms. Stahl. Ms. Stahl being asked, Mr. Gable.
Yes, Sarah is on a much-deserved vacation as we speak. She's, I don't know, running around Oregon apparently somewhere, so having some fun out west. You all have your fund budget summaries year to date in your packets. Just wanted to highlight really that the general fund is performing quite well this year. We remain within budgeted parameters year to date through the end of May. There's a couple cost overruns and very specific line items, and if you have questions about those, we'd be happy to address them. But generally speaking, everything remains within budgetary parameters. Property tax is collected at 96.6% to budget number this year. So everyone has already paid at a discount or substantially at face value. So we expect that number to meet the 100% budgeted number after we start collecting property taxes at penalty for those folks who haven't yet paid. Liquid funds available to the borough in the general fund. We have $3.2 million as of last week, just under $1 million in reserve cash. Capital reserve, we have $550,000, and that is largely due to the influx of the America Rescue Plan money that we've been talking about and budgeting with for the last several years. And to that point, Fund 96, which is the ARPA fund, there remains $2.26 million in that account. The big headline is later this month on June 21st, Ms. Sellers with Main Street could address a little specifics on this in her report at the end of the meeting. But the headline here is the borough is going to be officially presenting to the Historic Architectural Review Board for demolition of the 340 Baltimore Street property, affectionately known as our Little Brown House, to be redeveloped into the Gettysburg Welcome Center. There's a subcommittee with Main Street that is shepherding that project under the apt leadership of Skip Hockley, who has really been a public face and advocate for this project moving forward. So you'll be hearing a lot more from him and Main Street in the next month and moving forward through the remainder of the year. That presentation will be broadcast on community media because it's an interesting project for the whole community. Obviously, we thought that we should make that available online and on television for the public to understand what the borough's goals and objectives are for that project. With that, we can get into the motions, or if you have other questions, I'd be happy to entertain those.
Questions for the manager not related to the motions we have this evening? All right, the bills and payrolls. Can someone make that motion, please?
I'll make a motion to approve all bills and payrolls for the month as presented.
Second?
Okay, we have motion and second. Any questions or comments about the bills or payrolls this month? All right, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the next is the acceptance of the eligibility list from the Civil Service Commission.
I move to accept the eligibility list of candidates for the open positions of entry-level patrol officer as certified to and submitted by the Civil Service Commission of the Borough of Gettysburg. The Borough Council does not object to any of the 2 candidates certified by the Civil Service Commission on the eligibility list submitted to the Borough Council.
Second.
Okay, we motion and a second. Chief Glenn?
I would just say, thank you very much for approving these positions. Thank you for the Civil Service Commission, to HR here in the borough, to Sarah, to the mayor, to our officers, for just an outstanding effort to put this list together in time to get 2 candidates to a police academy that starts July 5th, considering that the testing for these positions started the first part of May. And I know that sounds like a long time when you're talking about 2 months, but when you have physicals and psychologicals and background investigations and oral interviews and giving folks time to prepare for that, that shortens that time significantly. So it was just an outstanding effort. I'm going to be frank, and I was hoping for more applicants for the effort that everyone put in. We didn't get those, but I'm happy with the 2 candidates that are on the list thus far. And again, I'm just very, very thankful to council and the community for seeing our need in this matter.
Well, I'm grateful to you as well, Chief. This has not been an easy process getting this done in short order. It took just about every aspect of our government to get this done. The manager, the secretary, the human resources coordinator, council members, the Civil Service Commission. We all had to operate on clockwork to get this going. And I'm grateful for your efforts. I know this was a lot of hustling for you.
Thank you. My pleasure.
I wanted to thank both the mayor and the chief for the amount of effort they put into advertising and really getting this out here. I think that everything was done that could be done in order to pursue applicants for these roles. We got the quantity that we got. Unfortunately, the chief and I, at different points, as this process was very, very truncated due to the limitations of getting people to hack. But we were both hoping that we would have a problem, that we would have too many applicants to handle in a day of oral interviews, which was done by the Chiefs Association of Pennsylvania for us. Unfortunately, that was not the case. We were able to handle them all in a single day. They can do 8 applicants per day. We would hope that we'd have an issue there, and we did not. But I think we did everything that could be done. I really think it highlighted the benefit of having a dedicated HR director on the staff, because between the chief, the mayor, HR, Sarah, who's traditionally covered a lot of those responsibilities, Dave Sanders of the Civil Service Commission, it really took the entire effort to make this function, because police officers are not a simple position for the borough to hire. Civil service was created because of problems that existed in 100 years ago with nepotism and related handouts with political issues, and we exist within that, whereas very few municipalities in the county otherwise do. So we were able to get through that process. We have 2 applicants that we'll be approving here directly, and then you'll notice that the hiring dates in the following motions are staggered, and that is done intentionally. We learned a lesson in the past that when you hire or promote 2 people on the same day, it really eliminates a seniority, a clear path to seniority if there becomes an issue, which we hope there does not later. But this will bring by the end of the year, our staffing would be at 13 plus 1, which would be great. That'd be 9 patrol officers, 2 sergeants, 2 detectives, and a chief. Any further questions or comments about the civil service list? All right, if not, I'd ask all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, we have the next motion for the first officer, please.
I move to make a conditional appointment of Alec A. Lardarello as the top-ranked candidate on the eligibility list, as certified and submitted to the Civil Service Commission, by the Civil Service Commission, for an open position of entry-level patrol officer with the Gettysburg Borough Police Department. Said conditional appointment of an entry-level patrol officer shall become effective July 1st, 2023.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Again, thank you, Chief. The Chief was very helpful in certain elements of this process, very specifically, and one of those things deals with things like our background checks, because things have become incredibly complex in terms of what can be investigated when, and for instance, there are certain things that have to happen after a conditional employment, whereas years ago you could kind of do it all at one time. So a lot of things have changed in the last 5 to 10 years with the law. Any other questions or comments? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, and our second appointee.
I'll make a motion to make a conditional appointment of Joshua T. Chilcote as the second-ranked candidate on the eligibility list, as certified to and submitted by the Civil Service Commission for an open position of entry-level patrol officer with the Gettysburg Borough Police Department. Said conditional appointment of an entry-level patrol officer shall become effective on July 2nd, 2023.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Any questions or comments? All right, if not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so we wish both of those gentlemen a safe and successful police academy. We'll expect to see them exiting the academy in December, correct?
The first candidate, we are able to.
I'm
obtain
sorry, maybe I'll sooner because
a
of.
partial waiver. He's still gonna have to go to pretty much the full length of the academy, but we can get him back some during that procedure to start with geography and things like that. Let's just like to add one thing. This is the.
He was federal, correct?
He was a federal police
Yes.
officer, is a federal police officer currently. So now that we're through this process and we've exhausted our list, you'll see on an agenda coming up here really soon, and I won't belabor this point, that we're going to be asking Borough Council to ask the Civil Service Commission to begin a civil service process for the probable potential opening of another 1 or 2 positions due to potential turnover. So it's more than just an eligibility, but retirements and.
I mean, it's the model that when you have a civil service commission, what's supposed to happen is you're supposed to have a list continually. The difficulty with that in the current environment is, and the chief, if I discuss the difficulties of this, is that you create a list, you have that list on hand to hire from, and by the time that you hire from that list, all those candidates have taken jobs elsewhere and are not going to come. But that's just something we have to deal with. But we, as soon as this was done, pretty much started to discuss, all right, what's the time frame that we want to lay out so that we can do a bit more front-end recruitment for applicants. You know, we can give people a little better span of time to prepare because this current one, basically, you had to be ready to go. So there's no time to, you know, get yourself in physical shape. If that's an issue, no time to study for the test. Really, it's like, hey, you have a few days, 30 days or so, and take it.
We had to just reinforce Mr. Heiser's point, we had a candidate that took the written exam, and then in the brief period of time that between the written exam and the oral exam, he withdrew from our process because he got another offer of employment from somewhere else. So that was a 2-week time span that the young man pulled himself out because he got another offer. So you know, we.
And one of the benefits of being able to take candidates as cadets that are not Act 120 certified is we're no longer relying on what we used to do, which was basically relying on pulling someone from some other borough or township. We had a few scenarios where individuals were laid off from townships in Franklin County. I remember particularly we had a few from there, but we don't have to depend on that because we'll send them for their training. But yeah, we'll probably see that within the next few months just to get it on the way.
I will end my normal long-winded comments with thank you. It's much appreciated.
Very good. All right, any other questions or comments for the manager? All right, that takes us to our liaison reports. First up, Ms. Sellers. Yes.
Evening all. Lots going on everywhere, of course. Today we held a joint meeting for the Christmas Festival and the Christmas movie that's coming. So if you haven't been all abuzz, well, the warm weather is coming. Christmas is, less than 5 months away for some of us. So very exciting things are happening. Anyway, we're looking for this to really be a breakout year because of the momentum that the movie is going to bring, as well as the fact is that we're just getting back on our feet following the pandemic. The Christmas Festival is reaching 10,000 visitors or more. Social media is hitting 100,000 followers or more as a following across the nation, and certainly in the Atlantic region. So we're really excited about the things that are happening. So encourage businesses to get in touch with me and find out what's going on with that in detail. This Friday, we will be doing the second round of facade improvement applications, so that program has been very well received. You may have noticed some of the properties around town that are taking up improvement and repair projects, paint projects, and things, and some of those are applicants from that program, and we're excited to be working with that to enable that through that Pennsylvania Downtown Center state money. June 19th, we are working with Google. Really exciting opportunity that came to Main Street, Gettysburg, and 9 other communities in the nation. So we were very fortunate to be in this small group. So we're going to be conducting small business workshops to help our small businesses come and take advantage of those learning opportunities. We're starting with an in-person workshop, 2 sessions on the 19th. You need to sign up, but we'll talk about using online tools, using e-commerce, and there's several other topics that will follow. Those follow-on workshops will be done virtually, but the first one will be done in person, and this is all provided for by state and national funding. So we're very excited to be able to offer that to our local and rural business community. It's not going to other. This particular program is really targeted towards small communities such as ours. So very excited. So please look on our website for all that information. 30th anniversary of the movie. Tickets go on sale on June 23rd if anybody's interested. So check out the Majestic website. That's the Gettysburg movie. We have lots of movies still happening here. I will be gone at the end of the month for the PDC conference, so I'm still available. Just reach out to me as needed, but I will be away. Shout out to community media. They did a tremendous promotional video for Main Street Gettysburg. So you'll be seeing that on our social media. It's on our website already, but a tremendous organization to work with, really detail-oriented, really professional products, and I'm just thrilled to be able to share that and have that pushed out into the community so they can see all the things that happen here in Gettysburg that we are able to help support. And finally, Charles mentioned, so June 21st is the HARB meeting, so we are getting ready for all things Brown House to transition to the Gettysburg Welcome Center. We do have a fantastic subcommittee that is working on information and of course support for that project. We're still waiting for federal notification on if we're going forward on the federal budget. That will be a game changer, of course. But we have other plans in our back pocket if that doesn't go that direction. We'll see what happens. But I encourage people to come out to HARB, see the detailed reports, see why this project is truly groundbreaking. It's going to be a game changer for this downtown for generations to come. This is time to really invest in the tourism and the future of how we take care of businesses, visitors, and residents who use our downtown. And this is a big piece of how that project is overall is going to start. So if you have any questions on that or anything else, I am always available.
Okay, any questions for Ms. Sellers at this time?
Okay.
Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, Mr. Carr is not with us this evening, but I would note that at the Recreation Authority on the 4th of July, they will have the activities there. So you're encouraged to attend. The Municipal Authority, Mr. Berger.
Yes, for the Andrews Well, we did a hydro geologic report. It's complete. This report provides data to the DEP about the well's capacity to effectively supply water to our system. It's been submitted to DEP, who's going to interpret that data and get back to us pretty soon. Cemetery Hill Tank, we're doing pipe work in the Hillcrest neighborhood and around the tour center, so we're in the process of putting out the bid to get that work done. The Interceptor, we submitted the permits, waiting to hear back about the grant. I don't know if you talked about that at the stormwater meeting.
Not really. No.
Not really, okay.
We approved the MOU, but we did not get into the weeds on that.
Okay, all right. And office building, bids for the office building that we're renovating on 424 Middle Street were received by the architects. They're going to review the bids, and the board will make a determination whether to move forward next meeting.
Okay. The bid, Ms. Butterfield.
Yes, as has been mentioned, the Christmas festival, and a lot of conversation went on about Steinware's role in the Christmas festival. They're interested in having an active role. They also spoke again about linking with the farmers market through publicity and tapping into some of that foot traffic. The Welcome Center / Brown House that both Charles and Jill mentioned, that's important to important to Steinware, because they're really hoping that that will increase a link between the downtown and Steinware. They want foot traffic and people to be pulled down that way, and they're sincerely hoping that that happens. The meeting on the 21st is here in this room, and it is at 7 p.m. Am I correct, Jill? 7 p.m. I'll be there. I hope others will come and give their support to supporting the Brown House.
Very good. The Boroughs Association, Madam Mayor.
The May meeting was canceled because the restaurant was under renovations for their kitchen. So the next meeting will be this Monday, June 19th.
Okay. Mrs. Butterfield, the Council of Governments.
I guess these are interesting meetings, even though like this last time there was no formal presentation, but the news from each of the participating agencies is always interesting. And the county commissioners were stressing at this last meeting about the ongoing work on the 160th, and Charles is participating in that. Jill is actively participating in that. So we are represented on the 160th committee very well.
Okay, very good. Ms. Lawson is not with us this evening, so again, Mrs. Butterfield with ACPO.
Yes, ACPO does not meet monthly, and they will not meet again until July.
Okay. Mr. Moon, overdose awareness.
The task force is hosting a film event tomorrow at the Majestic Theater at 5:30. It is free to the public. You can just come in and get a ticket right beforehand. We're showing a documentary called Tipping the Pain Scale, which has to do with the approach to pain management we have in our current health system, as well as the socioeconomic realities of addiction and treating addiction. It's a 2-hour documentary followed by a panel discussion of experts. I really encourage everybody in the room to please join us tomorrow at 5:30 at the Majestic.
Okay. Trail feasibility, Mr. Berger.
Nothing to report.
Recycling, Mrs. Butterfield.
Yes, as Deborah mentioned, we had our shredding event, very successful one. We had 90 customers that we moved through the event in an hour and a quarter. Thanks go to Robbie and his crew for setting it all up and helping it to go efficiently as always. And to our helpers, Sarah, Becca, Karen, and Tammy, and Larry Weichert, volunteer, and Pete was present at this one, directing traffic. And I remarked to him that he seemed very good at telling people where to go. And he was, and we thanked him, but it was a big success.
Okay, and you had the fire department's report in your documents. There was nothing there from EMS this month. Elected officials' comments. Any other items? Madam Mayor, start with you.
Yes, I would like to thank the Gettysburg Joint Veterans Memorial Day Committee for another successful Memorial Day event. It was wonderful. We had Hal Kushner, who was a Vietnam POW, speak. He really moved the crowd. I saw men in tears from his comments, just about his experience. It was wonderful, the people they had involved. So it was, I think, a very successful Memorial Day. Now, you have to take the good with the bad. Pride Fest. It was good, but it wasn't without controversy. And I think, Matt, are you going to talk about that or no?
You go for it.
No, but you can't control everybody. But I think it was a very good event, and we are all created equal. Now, the next thing is, Deborah, are you still here? I have a rain barrel in my backyard. My late husband put it there. I have so much water, I don't know what to do with it. What am I going to do with all this water? Now, also, next thing coming up is Juneteenth. We're going to have a march in Gettysburg, so you can join us in Lincoln Square at noontime, and we just walk through town, and they talk about Black history. June 19th, slaves in Texas did not realize that they had been emancipated in 1863 until 1865, and that's why it's called Juneteenth. So a local group does something for that. I will be involved. And also the governor and lieutenant governor are giving a Juneteenth reception, and I've been invited, and I will represent Gettysburg, and that's going to be this Thursday. I think that's about all I have. So, and also, Tom, I know, Bike Fest, it's not until it's not until September, but I've been asked to be the bike marshal of Bike Fest for the children. And if you could see me ride a bike, bring your cameras. It's hilarious. Last year I looked at them, I said, "You're not going to run me over, are you?" And they said, "Yes." Kids, yes. But anyway, I think that's all I have. And, okay, so Juneteenth is coming up. Can't think of anything else.
Yeah. Okay. Other elected officials' comments?
Thank you all for sending me to the PSAB conference. As always, I had my fill of chocolate, and it was a lovely time. We voted on 15 resolutions. This will be on Sarah's desk upstairs if you all want to look over the resolutions. We voted not for the motion, but that it be the PSAB would approve or would recommend a positive vote. And just two that are interesting. When my husband was on council in 2008, the radar for the police department was a big issue. And there's a resolution in 2023 pushing the radar. It continues. It's the longest.
I got a good feeling about this one.
So I'm not going to ask the chief.
I think I told you before that we were going to get it next year for the 35 years I've been a police officer.
I was going to ask you how many years it had been since you were hired, but I was confident that every year since you were hired as a police officer, you've been going to get
It's
it.
amazing, and 94% of those attending voted to press it forward, voted positively, and yet year after year it does not. So again, that was on. And the other interesting one had to do with now municipalities are not locked into advertising their meetings in a newspaper. Not every municipality has a newspaper, and the ordinance, the law through the Commonwealth said it must be advertised in a newspaper. So they broadened it to suggest that it be any media that could provide that service. So interesting. I brought some handouts for some of the staff that I picked up at the vendors meeting, and I brought some chocolate for some of my closest friends.
Mr. Lawler.
That's it.
Nothing.
Yeah, I just wanted to extend thanks to both the Department of Police and the Department of Public Works for what I think was a very successful 7th Pride celebration here in Gettysburg. I'm sure if Mr. Carr was here, he would also want to extend his thanks to both departments and to the mayor for speaking. Thanks, Robbie, for your team for helping with the road closures, and Chief, to all, you and all of your other officers who were present. Officers Bose, Holden, Panisse, Weinrich, Klunk, and Sergeant Pruitt, I just want to say thank you. It was a good day. It was a peaceful day. There was no shenanigans. We had, by most estimates on the day, about 2,000 visitors here to Gettysburg. It's a wonderful opportunity for us to show off our borough to people who might not otherwise come here, and also illustrate that this is a place where everyone is welcome. So I want to thank everybody for their involvement in that day.
Mr. Berger, anything this evening? Okay, that'll take us to our second public comment session. So please remind you to use the podium, give your name and address if you would like to speak. Now is the time.
Mr. Heiser.
Ms. Brown, yes.
This isn't on the agenda, but after you adjourn, I just would like to give you an update on the Arts Council building.
Would you like to give it to the general public?
I
Why don't you just go ahead and make public comment? Yeah, this is for all things. It does not have to be on the agenda.
Okay. If you go by the Arts Council, you'll see that the front of the building is kind of deteriorating. I just want you to know, we have all the money in place. We met with our architect today. We're supposed to go before HARB, and it is our hope by July or November that the facade of the building is all repaired. But the money is all in place, so we can move forward.
Yeah, for the record, Darlene Brown.
Pardon me?
Darlene Brown, for the record.
Oh,
If anybody
Darlene
wasn't
Brown,
sure.
yeah, 355 West High Street.
Anybody wasn't sure. All right.
So I just, because there's a little bit of plastic on it, and I didn't want you to think we've neglected the building itself. We're working with the architects and such.
Very much appreciated. Thank you. All right, public comment. Yes, Mr. Hodges.
Hey there.
Whoever's going to go, could you use the mic?
Thank you very much.
Yep.
All right, you said for me to give my name and address.
If you can use the mic, like no one at home will hear you if you don't. That's the issue. We'll all hear you, and that's as well, but we'd like the public to hear also that are not here.
All right. My name is Timothy Elias. My address?
Address, sir, yes.
Is 241 South Washington Street. And I'm here to talk about what I have right here, which is the X-Way Atlas four-wheel drive. I've been having very many issues with the officers who have pulled me over several times about riding this on the road. While I believe that this is more than fitting to be on the road, especially this board, amongst many other boards, because this one goes 30 miles per hour at an 8-mile radius, functions like any other vehicle. Now, I would understand if you were to say something like a vehicle that goes like 12 miles per hour, that's not allowed on the road. I entirely understand that. In fact, I really don't understand why there's something on the Borough that says Section 3-202, all skateboards, scooters, and longboards are allowed on the road, sidewalk and bike path, and will be trialed as a pedestrian. Will be trialed as a pedestrian. Yet those things only go like maybe 12 miles per hour, and you'll be in front of traffic the entire time. You'll be interrupting it, yet this can go as fast as traffic, and I keep getting complaints about it.
Okay.
That's why I wanted to address. I do not believe it's fair that I'm not allowed to use this. I do all the safety necessities. I drive like every other traffic does, just like other traffic. Whoever people make mistakes, I've made mistakes. We all do. But I just think it's really unfair to say that this is not allowed because it has a motor on it. Sorry if I sound a little stuttery. I'm not.
You're fine. I just want you to understand, like, this is your time to
Yeah,
comment.
Of course.
It's not really our time to comment.
Am I too far from the mic right now?
I honestly have no idea. He's saying you're good.
All right, sweet. Is there anything else to say? Yeah, I guess one last thing to say was when I was pulled over by an officer one day, this was the time when this was the first proof that told me that I cannot ride on the road. This man was explaining to me that I could hurt someone with this. while he was driving a Gettysburg police truck. And I just looked at him with how oblivious he was. And it definitely irritated me. But my goal is not just for me, but for the entire community, especially the college students. Because once they come back, you will see scooters, longboards, and skateboards all over the place. And this is no different from what they're driving. So I just want to let you guys know about this. If there's anything else I need to do to further the legalization of electric skateboards, longboards, and scooters on the road, let me know. And that's about it. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Public comment, I believe Mr. Hodges wanted to speak.
Hello, I'm Brian Hodges at 137 Ridge Avenue. Nice to see everybody. Hello. Probably wondering why I'm talking. The reason for me to speak to you tonight is I was hoping that council would look specifically at the ordinance called the Transient Retail Business Ordinance, specifically dealing with food trucks. I believe Jenny Dillon, who was head of GARMA, spoke about 2 years ago in 2021. She came before you and asked that food trucks be banned from Lincoln Square and one block in each direction of Lincoln Square and Steinway Avenue. Her reasoning at that time was that food trucks competed with the brick and mortar restaurants and took up parking spaces. GARMA's position is to support brick and mortar establishments in the borough and to promote the turnover of customer parking by having all available spaces for the public. And I tend to agree with that wholeheartedly. But I think you maybe tabled it at that time. I don't know if it's been discussed since, I'm not really sure. I would like to personally take it a step further and propose a ban on food trucks entirely in the historic district. I believe council should wholeheartedly back the brick and mortar establishments that pay local property taxes, school taxes, and now water tax. Brick and mortars also have to follow all the HARB requirements, sign permits and whatnot that food trucks do not have to do. Food trucks don't have to provide trash removal. They don't have to provide bathrooms, are not inspected regularly as brick and mortar restaurants, and can be possibly unfriendly to the environment if their engines are continually running. The ordinance specifically today does not stop a food truck from parking in front of any other restaurant. Could be a coffee and donut food truck that'll park in front of your local coffee shop, and they could technically park there all day. It could be a burger and fry food truck that'll park in front of the burger joint. I believe the time allowance is 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. and food trucks are supposed to follow other parking like a car and move every 3 hours, or they'll get ticketed or not pay their meter. And I don't think that happens. I don't think anybody's following through with that. Personally, I like food trucks. I really do. But I just think there's better places for them, such as private parking lots, private residences, the rec park, great location, neighborhoods outside the historic district. I just think that would be a better idea. Last summer, there were also incidents with food trucks parking right across the street from food establishments where the Gettysburg Police Department had to be called because there was incidents of business owners yelling at the food truck operators and going back and forth. And I think if the ordinance was tweaked to not allow it within a restaurant area, I don't think that problem is going to happen again. Also, last year there was at least 1 or 2 food trucks that advertised they'd be open until midnight on the streets right downtown. And the ordinance is written 9 p.m. So that's obviously breaking the ordinance, and there's no follow through, or the enforcement is lacking on that. So that's really what I want to talk about. I'd really like the ordinance to be looked at, discussed, put on the agenda, and to see where we can go with it. Okay? Thank you very much.
Any other public comment? Okay. After these public comment sessions, I do often get inquiries from, I'm sorry, Mr. Joel? Yes, of course.
My name is Timothy
Yeah, I think I saw her.
Hi there. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. Tom Jolan, 249 Ridge Avenue. And I want to thank the council for all the work that they do. And I want to thank the previous councils too, since it started in 2007, the Gettysburg Inner Loop. And an awful lot has gotten done. Over 9 seconds have been completed during that time. And now you're looking at what to do with Racehorse Alley, and that's what I'm going to address tonight. You have to put it in perspective of who are the supporters of who has been moving this along. And there are a lot of contributors: Adams County Community Foundation, Huffman Charitable Trust, Gettysburg College, Wellspan, Gettysburg Foundation, and the McGraw Charitable Funds. And then add to that just countless individuals that have given money to this effort. So I want to add 5 people, 5 entities provided right-of-ways for the Gettysburg Inner Loop. And so we don't want to let these people down at this time. We have to finish this, something adequate in Racehorse Alley. It's critical and essential. I had my notes, underline it, say it again. It's critical and it's essential. So that is my driving point here. Of those 9 segments completed, one was done this year, the Gettysburg Physical Therapy. When they went to construction, they put in the Gettysburg Inner Loop at their site on their property. What are we trying to accomplish? Always good to review it. Safety for bicyclists, walkers, and everybody. Preservation and revitalization of Chambersburg Street neighborhood. That's become run down through no fault of the residents there. It's the fact that cars drive across their private property, and that's made it run down. Personal health, where we burn calories for fuel rather than gasoline. Noise reduction, pollution reduction, and a real big one here, downtown business development, building as well as retention, and that is what the bicycling does. So I expressed this to you already in an email. I'll say it again. My favorite solution and the best that gives the overall benefit for the Gettysburg community is the Franklin Funnel. That allows bike ped traffic in both directions from North Washington Street to Beaufort, and it gives all Racehorse residents and guests full vehicle and bicycle access plus full parking. So Franklin Funnel will help our neighborhood revitalize, and that's very, very important because for years cars are illegally violating them by driving over their property. Here I am in this stage of life where nothing seems to focus anymore, you know. I want to talk about health, and I want to be honest with you. Our young people are unfortunately going to live shorter lives than other people that we're going to live. Our lifespan is going down, and by comparison to the rest of the world, developed countries, theirs is going up. So we're now 6 years difference. We're down to 76, they're up to 82. And Dr. Kevin Moser wrote a letter to the Borough Council back in 2009, really advocating for the Gettysburg Inner Loop. I have to quote him because he was right on. As a nation, we are facing tremendous adverse health conditions associated with decreased physical activity. The USA has nearly 4 times the obesity rate as Netherlands. They ride on bikes and we ride on cars. And so I'm bringing in the bike situation here. I want to give a shout out to Mayor Rita Freeling, who is again going to be our parade marshal and a good example for our kids. She'll have her helmet on and she'll give a little pep talk and help put some crepe paper on the tires. Thank you for doing that again this year. It works out, bicycling works out beautifully and walking in a community. A fact, 53% of all trips are 3 miles or less. And just think what that can do with your feet and what you can do with a bike. You can do most of your work without having to start up your car. And there's really no reason to jump in a car at that point. Sometimes you get into controversy. We admit that. We know that we're asking for a change. Can I have another minute, or is that?
Just finish up your thought.
Okay, yeah. I'll bring up Mayor Tom Murphy from Pittsburgh. He had the same controversy. He took part of the Pittsburgh Steelers practice field and made it into a rail trail. A lot of objection, a lot of pushback, but guess what? The people love the rail trail there, and also the Pittsburgh Steelers are still a strong team, and everyone still loves them. So I have to say, Council, you're very, very hard workers, and you're very much appreciated. Thank you.
Yep. Public comment. Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Daphne Reiner. I live at 424 Queen Street. And I'd like to talk about the changes of traffic to Racehorse Alley. A friend of mine recently said, why change the traffic flow in Racehorse Alley? The current situation is working just fine. But my friend, he drives a car, he doesn't ride a bicycle. I have kind of a different perspective. As Tom said, over half of the trips in the United States are less than 3 miles. The source for that is the federal government Bureau of Transportation statistics. 3 miles is not a lot. I moved to the borough, bought my house about 8 years ago, and I do the vast majority of my errands on a bicycle. I go to Kenny's to shop for groceries. I go to the YWCA to work out. To downtown to meet friends for drinks and dinner. A little further afield to Gettysburg Animal Hospital to get my cat's medication. And I even rode here today on my bicycle. So kind of coupling that with riding to work and back, I kind of did a quick calculation, and the 8 years that I've lived here, I've probably taken 4,000 trips within the borough on my bicycle. That's 4,000 trips that my car stayed at my house. I saved a bundle on gasoline, wear and tear on my car. I've had lots of fun. I just love riding a bicycle. But things have changed the last few years. I don't know what to attribute to. The drivers I notice are becoming, and I ride a lot. Drivers are becoming more aggressive. And I don't know if it's the pandemic or more people moving to this area, and the roads are becoming more congested, more distracted driving, people looking at their phones. But I notice this a lot. People run red lights, they ignore stop signs, they don't give the right of way. One thing that really gets to me is you get pedestrians and they're standing in the crosswalk and it's raining and it's cold, and drivers will just drive by and not let them cross. So things, even though my friend thinks that things are fine the way they are, they're not for people who are looking to different modes of transportation. And I've had some very close calls recently within the borough. I try to do everything right. I wear a high-vis vest. I have a rear blinking light. It was broad daylight. These drivers obviously saw me. They still chose to break the law, and they did break a law. And I swear I came within an inch of my life. And these things seem to be becoming more and more common. And just providing people who want to use an alternative mode of transportation a safe way to get across town and to downtown, I think will be very, very valuable. If people perceive that cycling is safe, more people will ride. I'm a very experienced rider. It takes a lot to scare me, but some of the experience that I've had recently, somebody else was not so experienced. One of those, they'll be like, I'm done with bicycling, stick the bike in the garage, and they'll never ride again, and they'll just drive. So I would urge the council to make the changes to the traffic at Racehorse Alley. I do support the Franklin Funnel option, because I think that will be safest for drivers, safer for bike riders. just to reduce the amount of vehicle traffic on Racehorse Alley. And that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Public comment. Yes, sir.
I'm Michael Bramall. I live at 523 Moritz Road in Ortana. Up until about 2 years ago, I was a resident of the borough. I lived here for about 10 years or so. And I had multiple opportunities to use the Racehorse Alley shortcut. I'm also on the board of directors of HAPPY, I should also say. So I am kind of speaking in advocacy of trying to reduce motor vehicle traffic on Racehorse Alley as much as possible. I know that we can't completely do that, but I appreciated that shortcut. I used it quite frequently in my car. And as I was thinking about making comments tonight, I started wondering, well, what are we asking drivers to give up in terms of the amount of time they save with that shortcut? So kind of on the spur of the moment, I decided to do my own little traffic study today. So I went out and drove back and forth, timing myself going from what used to be Dunlop's restaurant, driving from the west side over to crossing the railroad tracks on Washington Street. Half of the time driving on Chambersburg Street, half of the time driving on Racehorse Alley. And I did part of those drives, half of those drives about 1 o'clock or so in the middle of the day. And the other half I decided I better come back when things were a little busier, so around 5 o'clock or so. And I was surprised to find that there was little or no difference when you took the average of my drives, whether it was on Racehorse Alley compared to Chambersburg Street. Now, Chambersburg Street, it's like that old, I guess, nursery rhyme or children's story about when it's good, it's very, very good, and when it's bad, it's horrid. So there were some times, my worst times were definitely on Chambersburg Street when I hit the lights the wrong way, have to wait for traffic to clear before you can make a left turn onto Washington Street. But many times it was faster than actually going on Racehorse Alley. It kind of depends on whether you're able to hit the lights right, how heavy traffic is. I actually found that my averages favored Chambersburg Street slightly, which surprised me a bit. Now, I want to be the first to say these are very tentative numbers. I only did like a half, I guess I did a dozen trips back and forth, kind of divided between Chambersburg and Racehorse Alley, and just a small number of observations. It was a rainy day. It was a Monday. It may just be a fluke that it turned out that way. I understand that a discussion of Racehorse Alley as a part of the Gill project will be on the agenda on the June 26th workshop meeting. I hope to take some more observations so that I can have a little more confidence in what I'm putting out there and any conclusions that might be able to be drawn from that. But I did want to suggest tonight that what we're asking people to give up may be more of a perception than a reality in terms of time that they think they're saving there. Perceptions are important too. I can't dismiss that either, but it is possible. My numbers today suggest that it's actually a little bit better to drive on Chambersburg Street, a little bit quicker overall. And any one time, I think we'd like to avoid it because it's a little more of a roll of the dice. There can be more traffic there. Racehorse Alley is pretty much a given. We sort of know what to expect, what's coming up there. So I think we kind of like the predictability of that over what's going on Chambersburg Street, but it may be the case that if you're making that traverse often enough that in the long run you actually do a little bit better on Chambersburg Street. So thank you for listening.
Public comment. Okay, seeing no further public comment, I did want to address, and I've had some inquiries in the past several months about we have public comment, and then it's kind of like, well, what happens after that? And in general, I'd watched previous chairs, even before I was on this council, kind of editorialize after people made public comment, so I really hesitate to say a whole lot after they speak. But I thought it was probably appropriate to explain to folks how essentially Mr. Moon, Mr. Gable, and I determine how things get on the agenda. And because you are heard, but this is kind of how we get there. First step is I always look at our legal authority. Is there anything that we actually have legal authority to do, considering the item that is brought up? So to be very candid, certain things related to the motor vehicle code and what can or not can be on the street, I can tell you it's going to be beyond our legal authority to do so. It is very much restricted by the Commonwealth. We are told, hey, you may operate within these parameters, and that's pretty much it. So unfortunately, that's a heavy restriction. The second deals with the priority that any item is, and where it competes against others, because one of the biggest problems we have as a borough government is our time is very finite, and how many hours you can spend. Even if we had, several work sessions a month, there are limits. And that becomes difficult because even amongst the members of this council, there are different priorities and what should be discussed or not. So the thing that generally jumps to the top are things that we're legally mandated to address. So we have issues that come up that we must deal with. Those always go to the top. And then we look at things like how recently was something addressed. Was this something that kind of reached a conclusion? Was it something that we dealt with in the recent time period? We had someone here a few months ago dealing with 4th Street, with Pacific Street. We repaved and redesigned that street just a few years ago. So outside of enforcement, it's really difficult to justify using the public resources to re-engineer a street that was repaved within the past 6 or 7 years. And then the last really deals with the likelihood that we will reach an outcome. So specifically dealing with items that have been discussed prior. If I look at the council and I see basically the same faces at the table that were there the last time we discussed something, it's not usually helpful to bring it up and go through the same discussion again, unless there's known that something has changed. So for instance, the food truck issue we discussed twice within about a 12-month span here in the past few years. And the outcome of that discussion was that we had some members that wanted to really grant a lot of leeway to food trucks, allow them to park at areas for extended time and do things of this nature. We had other folks on the council that wanted to restrict the geographic area where the food trucks could operate. And the problem was that we had neither of those camps gain a majority during that discussion, and I couldn't even say that one of them had 3 votes at any given time. And so where we ended up was, and this is sometimes how things end up, is we kept it basically at status quo, that they're treated like any other vehicle. They can be parked there for the duration of that meter. Obviously, laws are on the books as they are, and we all know about enforcement problems pretty much with everything. I mean, it'd be pretty easy to talk to the chief about how many years he's watched things with policing and the difficulty, and we've discussed certain areas and locations that are just very difficult with traffic because of the nature of how they sit. So just understand there is a process, if you will, to how we get things on the agenda. One of the very large difficulties we deal with is that there are things that have sat and waited that need addressed, because some of those things don't always capture the public attention, yet they're a problem. So for instance, some point of the next several months, we'll be looking at things like our sidewalk ordinance, which has been in the works now for several years. And generally unbeknownst to the public, unless you went and did a legal search, but pretty much perpetually, and this is probably true for any municipality of any size, or at least the foot traffic that we have, anytime someone trips on a sidewalk, after they sue the property owner, they are going to sue us and everyone else. And so we want to make sure that that's something that we've noted that needs addressed and we need to update, so that then we can move forward with things like enforcement. And that was discussed long before I came on, and it's something we will continue to discuss, but it's something we have to deal with. Not unlike our sign ordinances, kind of been in the works for the last 5 or 6 years, and specifically things related to a court case that was decided in 2015. Unfortunately, it's difficult to address all of the changes that occur. I think that the gentleman with the scooter, it's not a new technology, but it's changed a lot, and I understand that. And we deal with that with the signs and everything else. If changes occur outside our authority, we have to try to adapt. You saw that in the last probably about 14 months or so with the zoning issue we just went with. Unfortunately, a lot of these issues are very complex. We went through this with stormwater this evening. A lot of these things are very complex, so we can't just touch them for a month or two. And the June 26th meeting, the statement was correct. You can expect another discussion of Racehorse Alley, perhaps the final discussion of Racehorse Alley, because we have to get Mr. Clayball to work. And the employee handbook also will continue, which is not exciting. And believe me, it's not fun, but it's very necessary. And it hasn't been visited in close to 15 years. So it's not always local governments, not often the excitement. And to be candid, there are things that I would have liked to brought up in the past 8 years that will not come up before I leave. And that's just the nature of how this functions and working as a team. So if there's nothing else, we will adjourn. I'm sorry, Mrs. Butterfield.
Yes, I just wanted to mention that the Upper Adams School District has announced that one of our colleagues, Councilman Chris Berger, is the recipient of the annual Ungerstock Teacher of Excellence Award. In the text for the award, it mentions that the recipients are excellent role models for students. They show enthusiasm for teaching and a knowledge of their subject. Best wishes and well-deserved, Chris.
Thank you so much.
All right. We will adjourn to executive session.